What is up, fellow video gamers? Today we have another Path of Exile 2 race event, and this one is going to be especially sick and especially special because we have an amazing guest. Not really. I mean, this is Crimson Cast. He's been a part of the PoE2 racing community for an extremely long time now, known as one of absolutely, if not the most knowledgeable Path of Exile 2 speedrunner. You might have seen him a little bit in the last race and some of the previous ones as well. What is up, Crimson? How are you? How are you doing?
What's up? Thank you for the kind introduction, Rise. Yeah, my name's Crimson. I'm a PoE2 and general ARPG speedrunner and speedrun commentator. I'm happy to be here today. I will be keeping a very loose eye on Twitch chat, so if people want to tag at CrimsonCasts with questions, I'll get to what I can. But just know there are a lot of you, and I'm trying to keep track of things with production as well, so I'll do the best that I can. If Twitch chat has mechanical questions, I'll try and give as much speedrun-specific insight as I can.
Also, some of you guys are very naughty in Twitch chat, so we're gonna be ignoring that as well.
I mean, I did
But
talk to production. If you are naughty in Twitch chat, they will manually loop your temple.
hell yeah, that's the way to do it. And that already is an indicator that for once on this cast, we actually have a person who knows what the hell they're talking about. So thank you so much for that, Crimson. He's actually going to be able to give you guys very specific things if you're seeking to improve your gaming, if you're looking to get through the Path of Exile 2 campaign a little bit quicker, or maybe, it's going to be a little bit more enjoyable. This is going to be absolutely it for you. This is the second race in our three-part race series for this league, and we had some really spicy stuff go down last league for sure, or last race for sure. One of those spicy things, unfortunately, was the fact that we didn't have the league mechanic in, and this time it's going to be here, so the players are going to be getting a lot more currency, and in general, it's just going to be a pretty big deal. Right, Crimson?
Yeah, that's a huge deal. To give you guys some insight in the audience to how significant that league mechanic can be, in Act 1 alone, if you interacted with every single Vol seal that existed, you would get 2 transmutes, a level 2, 3, 4, and 5 skill gem. You'd get a support gem, a white amulet, a regal, an alch, and 2 exalts. So that's a pretty high currency and skill gem floor that was completely missing last week. So as a consequence, racers, we should expect to see a lot faster times and also a much tighter spread among the top racers than we saw last week. Mostly because if you're on the worst side of drop RNG or vendor RNG, having those extra regals, exalts, and alchs allows you to sort of spend those to push your floor up. So we should expect to see a much closer and more competitive race than last week, which is saying something, because last week it was really close right down to the wire.
Yeah, and this is also something that you can plan around. I'm sure a lot of our participants planned around this fact and chose their strategy. Are they going for level 29, 31, 33, depending on what kind of access to currency they were having? And yeah, unfortunately, a little bit of a downer here, but they're in full power this time around. And we might as well switch over to our speedrunner cams as we can introduce some of the players. Some of them need no introduction, like our top left, Angormus. This guy's a monster, right? Like
Yeah,
he's
and
just
Gorm's
unbeatable.
completely undefeated on Warrior. Hasn't been particularly close in any week. A couple of other names that you may be familiar with if you're a longtime race fan. You'll know Chackle Coach the Mercenary, a Brazilian player, as well as Relicario the Druid, a Brazilian player. And I just wanted to highlight a friend of mine and a very friendly streamer, Lisara on the Ranger, is actually a bow-based player. So if you're someone in the audience who's curious what the other projectile skills look like, if you haven't seen any top quality stuff other than nades on the Dex and Dex hybrid classes, I encourage you to keep an eye on Lisara throughout the run. We're hoping that he does particularly well. He also levels up a bit higher than other people. We've seen a lot of
Mm.
people pushing toward these lower level strategies over the course of the last couple weeks. People like Whole New Society and Guy That Dies have been pushing for, sub 33 strats at level 31 or 28, and Lisara is actually going a bit higher than that, playing a primarily lightning arrow based strategy. So if people are curious for the diversity of other skills that are possible, we have a big spread on the beach for you guys right now, and we're looking forward to seeing how the different strategies do over the course of the run.
And just a reminder, that's still like 20 levels under the zone level when our players are going to be finishing. So it is going to get spicy, especially in the latter parts. But Act 1 can be tricky for some of our players as well. We've seen a lot of early deaths, a lot of frustration. You really don't want to run into some tilting moments early on that just set you up for that bad mentality for the remainder of the race. But these guys have practiced a lot, they're experienced, and I think, especially for the people that we're seeing on the screen right now, they're going to remain strong mentally as we have already kicked off the race and the players are approaching this first boss. Any special strategies, any positioning that they can utilize for this early on fight?
So it depends on the class. We've seen a lot of warriors on front page over the course of the last several race cycles. But one thing I want to point out is the druid. If the audience looks at Relicario in the bottom corner of their screen, Volcano, of all of the beach skills on the different classes, the skill gems that you're handed for free, Volcano is
Holy,
actually the fastest at killing um, the
he's
miller, as you can
pumping.
see. Yeah, it requires you to hold the volcano a bit longer than is intuitive. If you're playing volcano on the beach, there's a little counter on the top left corner of your screen that'll show you a number of stacks, and you want to wait until you see at least 3 before you release, but that gives you the best beach damage of any class. And then you can see that Lisa on the ranger on the top right will be doing a particularly good job at kiting the miller. That's because of the famous like duck under the bridge strategy that you can do on ranged classes, but also because lightning arrow is able to clear the mobs pretty effectively. So as a consequence, you have a pretty safe fight on the ranger if it's a couple seconds slower than those that have two-handed weapons. I'm actually hearing from
100%.
production in the back as I'm claiming Volcano is the fastest skill. The first 6 characters to kill the Miller were all Druids. So that gives you insight as to how fast Druid is on the beach. And then we get out into the Clearfell. One thing I want to point out is actually this is probably the craziest Act 1 map seed I've seen. I just opened it up as we were in the pregame chat here, and it looks like we're going to have a particularly interesting set of layouts in Act 1. We'll talk a little bit more about that if that actually comes to fruition. But for now, we have a couple of people out in Clearfell taking some comfortable early fights. Anything that's
Comfortable.
sticking out?
Not for Lysara. Dropping low already while trying to AoE down some mobs. But tactical, strategic, as long as your HP stays above 0, you're good. Oh, actually, I guess some friendly reminder on the actual race rules. This is a softcore race, but it has a death timer, 2.5 minutes for our players, and there's also fixed seed, so everybody does have the same map, as Crimson mentioned, so it's not going to be any sort of RNG in regards to that. I think there is still a little bit of RNG in terms of box rolls, as in everybody gets the boxes, but it sometimes the mods are different from one another, so it's something to keep in mind for our players. But as far as like practice and whatnot, everything is pretty deterministic for everybody. As Shackle Coach now approaches Bira, another boss that can be a little bit tricky for some of our players, turning into bear form, doing a lot of damage right now, staying safe. We haven't
Yeah,
seen a whole lot of rips, but it's been good
one
on
thing
this one.
One thing that may be a bit deceptive in a lot of these early fights, depending on the classes, but especially looking at the strength and strength hybrid classes like the Druid, Mercenary, and Warrior, is that a lot of the slams for these early bosses, the Miller, for Bira, for Ariadne, even for the Rust King a little bit, some players, knowing the exact damage amount that those skills can do, will choose to face tank particular slams, and so it'll look like they're dropping low, but it's all calculated and planned out. So as we look at, for example, Warrior, Mercenary, and Druid are all on your screen, you may expect people to, for example, just face tank a couple of these things. You can see
Right.
that the early going for bows is about 30 to 40 seconds slower into the Grellwood than we saw from a couple of the other classes. That's just because two-handed weapons are a bit faster off of the beach, but as we get a slightly higher amount of currency into people's hands, it should stabilize a bit. So the class-to-class difference is pretty small, but it is meaningful, especially both very early and very late in the run.
100%. And yeah, taking down Ariadne safely is a pretty key element, as we've seen a lot of rips whenever players are trying to push the damage. You do really have to pace yourself. But Shackle Coach will kill another boss. Angormus in the Red Veil will be not the first person to enter the zone, but he was very close. I think he was second to another Chinese player that we're not seeing yet. Later on, we're going to be switching through different players, through different cams. Right now, we're just seeing who can establish that early dominance, and we're obviously checking out different approaches, different skills. And we've talked a little bit about the Druid, but Druid still seems quite unexplored. Crimson has mentioned to me before the cast that there are a lot of different strategies, there are a lot of different approaches, but there aren't that many players who are willing to try this new class just yet. So yes, people are experimenting, but the playstyle isn't fully figured out, and we might be seeing some really good finishes coming out from the Druid in the long run if somebody has a really nice run here.
Yeah, I was joking with some other runners and with Twitch chat before we started today that if you took the top 10 or 15 players in the world and sealed them in a room, I don't know what would happen at the end of a month, but I'm pretty confident the conclusion wouldn't be that grenades is the fastest skill. But
Really? Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
I think that if you got a bit more collaborative effort on optimizing the Druid tree, I think that there's a pretty decent chance that the consensus would be that some version of Druid, probably early leveling with Essence Drain Contagion with a transition to something else in early Act 2 would be a big deal. One thing that I want to point out here that may not be obvious to people, the Red Veil seed that we've gotten today is actually one of the fastest possible Red Veil seeds. So we should expect to see some really early split times to enter both the Grim Tangle as well as to fight Lachlan. This layout is called Hook in the famous Red Veil PDF. That's the name that's used for it. Some people call it Camel, which is the name that I use. There are two different memorization systems people use for this set of layouts. And those notes are shared with people in the Campaign Codex Discord, which is a community resource for getting faster league starts. Angormus is most of the way through here, and he looks like he's going to be one of the first players to fight Rust King, which is something that we expect from Warrior. He got a very early Smithing Hammer with 2 to 5 fire damage, which is one of the better modifiers that you can get on an early weapon here. And then he's going to use a Talisman, just a white Changeling Talisman to build up some rage, get a little bit more damage onto the Rust King here. His fight should be particularly safe. This boss fight is particularly efficient for Warrior. What he's going to do is try to draw in all of the units that's summoned by the Rust King onto the feet of the Rust King here, and then he's going to use Bone Shatter to sort of shotgun him down, and we will see that effect right now, and that's one of the reasons that Warrior is super duper fast early on in Act 1.
Oh.
He did also get a pair of yellow gloves here. We'll see when he IDs them if there are any damage modifiers on those that are particularly valuable.
Yeah, we were freaking out about a pair of yellow gloves on the last race. I believe that Angormus got pretty early on that really set him apart. I mean, Angormus by himself sets himself apart from other players. I believe that's a movement speed pair of boots that he's got on the vendor. Yeah, he's going to pick those up with some cold resistance. That's absolutely going to help. Resistance is not that big of a deal in this early stage, but as our players continue to pump through the acts, every little bit is going to count for sure. And I mean, extra survivability. What can what can go wrong, right?
Yeah, and then as we take a look at Lysra, you'll notice that the Ranger is struggling a little bit in the Red Veil to deal with these mobs. That's because Lysra so far hasn't gotten an item, at least so far as I can tell. Upgrading from that level 1 bow to that level 5 short bow is particularly difficult. If you click on all of the different weapon racks that are available in the Red Veil, you're guaranteed one of every second tier martial weapon. So that's one oak great hammer, one tense crossbow, one short bow, and so forth. And that upgrade for Ranger is particularly impactful. In talking with Lysra over the last couple of weeks about his Ranger preparation, it's about a 45% base DPS upgrade, which is unusually large for that tier jump. And so it's
Holy.
especially important for those Rangers to grab that early. So you'll notice that Lysra is clicking on all of these rusted weapon racks to try and find that item upgrade, and until then he's going to be kiting mobs and being forced to play much more defensively than some other classes will early on.
Angormus now fighting the Rotten Druid, shifting back and forth, trying to build up as much damage as possible. Some good output there. Dodges the rock. Stays safe. This fight can also be tricky. Sometimes if you get a little bit overconfident, maybe you stand still for a little bit too long. But that's not something that Angormus is going to do. And another pair of gloves. I believe there was one flat damage roll on there, but not quite sure how good it was. Later on, we're going to be taking a look at people's gear, maybe a little bit before Geonor too, because we've seen some crazy perfect strike damage output from Angormus last week on the Geonor fight.
Oh my gosh, Angormus dropped a wooden club here with 47% IPD, 2 to 5 fire, increased attack speed, and 6 life per enemy killed. That's a big upgrade for him, even though it's a downgrade in the base type. Those are some very impactful mods. That life per enemy killed, particularly important for Bone Shatter, where a lot of the close quarters combat can result in people being a little bit lower HP. And if I'm not mistaken, Angormus is very close to tied for first to enter the Cemetery of the Eternals. 10 flat is not an especially good time for a race lead. It's a good time in general, but when we have this many high quality players logged in at once, you'd expect the race lead to be a little bit faster than that. But this is very, very good pace from people so far. Another thing I want to point out about Angormus' RNG so far is that neither of the glove sets that he found, I'm snooping on his client, neither of the glove sets that he found have flat damage on them, but he does have a Regal Orb already, which is a huge deal. That helps to
Nice.
stabilize a lot of his RNG later on, and as he's progressing through Cemetery of the Eternals and the Tomb Zones, he'll be doing what he can to
And yeah,
try and
we
spend that
are
Regal wisely.
we are having a little bit of a technical difficulty. Some of you guys might have noticed we're lagging, but that's not an issue for the players. We're going to be switching from our typical view, and now it should be a whole lot better for you guys. The problem isn't obviously happening for our players, it's just the viewing experience for you guys. But I mean, listen, we're we're all Path of Exile 2 viewers, so there's always going to be a little bit of technical difficulties. We've switched over to the in-game view, and now we've got Angormus, Whole New Society, Arco, and guy that dies that is not moving. We're going to be finding a new player to replace him very, very soon. But yeah, like Crimson mentioned, Angormus definitely will be pretty happy with this early stage RNG as he was having a lot of RNG issues last race trying to get a shield that is a warrior switch up that our players get to later on. And now doing the mechanic, let's see what kind of rewards he's going to be getting. Picks up the guarantee and runs away. Nice little XP and a great pickup for Angormus there. We've got a Whole New Society in the top right. Somebody who has performed incredibly well in the last season of races. We've seen quite a lot of him in the last race as well. Unfortunately, wasn't quite able to win from what I remember, but they got very, very close. And overall, it was a great run.
Yeah,
As
one of the
oh, there we go.
narratives from last week is Whole New Society's run. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, players, especially on Mercenary, have been trying to develop these skills, these routes based around going at levels lower than 33 and without that bombard crossbow. Whole New Society has been particularly aggressive in the pursuit of this. In his practice, we've seen him go at levels as low as 28, mostly focused around
Hmm.
upgrading to an alloy crossbow, which is not a typical choice
Right.
for mercenary players to upgrade to. But that came back to bite him last week. One of the things that's particularly interesting is he had a really, really fast Doriani kill, a 151, which is an exceptionally quick time even for a race lead. But then he spent a total of 42 minutes by my clock, going back and watching people's VODs as I prep for this commentary. 42 minutes is abysmally slow for Act 4. And
Holy.
that was
Hit him with the truth.
players of Whole New Society's caliber much more typically have something like a 28 or 29-minute split on mediocre RNG and times as fast as 24 or 25 minutes in Act 4 on good RNG, and 42 minutes is pretty catastrophic. Now, part of that was because he didn't have the currency to upgrade a better weapon than he had, so used his level 16 weapon as late as he possibly could, but he also had some fight execution that we're hoping to see him avenge this week. Another player that we didn't see participate last week, but that I personally am excited to see is Guy That Dies on the bottom right of your screen.
Of course.
Guy That Dies, a friend of mine, a top racer. He has a tense crossbow with 48% increased physical damage, so pretty typical stuff here. He also has 1 to 5 lightning on his gloves, so his damage is a bit middle of the road, but we're hoping to see an upgrade here. And right as I say that, he drops a beautiful makeshift crossbow. It has flat increased physical damage, and then it also has split IPD and accuracy, as well as 37% increased elemental damage with attacks. His tooltip damage right now is 55, which is nuts. Typically, a tooltip damage for an explosive grenade mercenary at this point with a level 1 skill gem would be like between 35 and 40. So having a 55 tooltip means he has like 30 or 40% more damage than his sort of average for a mercenary at this point in the run. That's crazy drop RNG. For that
And he gets
makeshift
to test it too.
crossbow.
Asinya coming out. Let's see what kind of output he's going to be having here. Definitely significantly more than what we were seeing from some of our mercenary players last week. And I think Crimson also, the introduction to Guy That Dies was a little short. From what I remember, this guy won every single race in the last season of races, right? And we're talking about first overall.
Not quite. He won season 3 race 1 and then he DNF'd from rank 1 in season 3
Oh,
race 2 and DNF'd from second rank in season 3 race 3. So he was in first and won, in first and DNF'd because he drew IRL aggro and had to go
okay.
AFK for some real life reason. And then
All right.
in race 3, he was a couple of minutes, maybe 4 to 6 minutes behind Whole New Society going into Nakanu, and then ended up DNFing because he is a rank 1 fatalist and thinks that if you're not rank 1, you may as well log out. He does trip and fall there.
Makes sense.
We see Whole New Society killing Assinia there as well. One thing I want to point out about this crossbow that I was fawning over just a moment ago is that it is on a makeshift base. So it's missing about 40% of the base damage. Makeshift is the level 1 base, and then Tense is the level 4 base. So if he had these same modifiers on a higher tier, he would be ready to go and kill Geonor with this. Instead, he's probably still looking to upgrade one more weapon. And so we will have to follow up with Guy That Dies to see if he gets another upgrade before Geonor. But in a pinch, he could definitely make do with this.
Yeah, and we were seeing a lot of different druid approaches in this early stage of the game. We were kind of comparing druid to a monk and how it was in past seasons with just using a variety of abilities. But Arco now utilizing all of his available mobility and mostly focusing on trying to get contagion out. We did see some druid players die because their contagion wasn't quite dealing enough damage, but when it does work and when you are doing enough, the AoE is just tremendous. Not something that a warrior player or a mercenary needs to resort to, but still can be quite effective if you're just looking to level up. Now with that checkpoint, he's fighting the mini boss, gets the chest. Nicely done by Arco.
Yeah, and it looks like we still have a very close race. Production is telling me that Guy That Dies was the first to get any of the graveyard keys, and Relicario on the Druid was 12 seconds behind. And then a bunch of familiar names are within 60 seconds of that, including Angormus, Whole New Society, a Chinese player named Three Knife, Driz, Jigglypuff, which is the English language alias of the latter name LHD93, and then both
Nice.
Jiluo and Kiyoom in that top bracket there as well. So still a close race this early on in Act 1. We don't typically expect to see players string out much until later on in the run, and Angormus has a very clean fight there against Draven, and now we are into fights against Lachlan. I'm very curious for these early split times on Lachlan if we're able to get them for a couple of top players, but it looks like Angormus and Whole New Society entering at about the same time. So I'm very curious. Angormus still using that same set of weapons that we saw earlier. I'm very curious to take a look at Whole New Society's crossbow as well. I'll pull it up on my little snooping client. Looks
His
like he
damage is
has
looking good.
it's actually kind of funny. He has 42% increased physical damage, which is an item level 1 modifier. There's a big gap at item level 8, where if you're looking for league start tips, this is the first one I'm going to leak to you guys. Item level 8 is the first place where flat damage, increased physical damage, and so forth can roll on higher tiers for all these different martial weapons builds. So as a consequence, you'll see people as they start to get into hunting grounds and later on zones, they'll be transmuting and augmenting low-level bases, fishing for big deals of damage upgrades. It was mentioned on stream last week, but I just want to reiterate the point. The difference between a level 1 and a level 8 item modifier is nearly a factor of 2.5 or 3 in many cases. For example, the best possible roll of lightning damage is 1 to 10 at item level 1, but at item level 8, it's 2 to 27, so nearly tripling your damage output. So if you end up with a low tier base and a high tier mod, it's actually better to use that early on in the race. So as we look for people to be transmuting those weapons that they find here and trying to find their Geonor killing weapons, those level 8 item modifiers are particularly important, both on your accessories, on your gloves and rings, as well as on your weapons. Meanwhile, casters, like for example our Essence Ring Contagion players, will be relying a lot more on really low-level modifiers, things that you can roll at item level 1, like 60% increased spell damage is a really common modifier. It has a really high weight in the pool, so you might transmute a low-level staff or wand and fish for that, and then try and come back and find your plus levels later on. Item level 5 is the first place that increased that +2 to all spell levels can occur. One other thing that I want to point out is that you'll see as we go through hunting grounds here, players will approach this differently. Most players will be just wall hugging their way around the zone, but there's been a lot of work once ExileCon was announced to try and really solve this zone and save those precious seconds that may make the difference in a future qualifier race between rank 1 going to New Zealand and competing on the main stage and rank 5 and staying at home to watch on Twitch. So a few of the players that have particularly good zone knowledge in the zone, we may expect to see them accumulate a 10 or 20 second gap over the rest of the field in that zone. And Guy That Dies in Angormus have spent an enormous amount of personal effort in solving this zone, and those solutions aren't all public yet. So we may see some private knowledge
Oh, wow.
coming to the fore for the first time in our racing history here.
And all that only to notice that the Wyvern comes out ahead. Relicario with the first Bellboy kill. Nicely done by him. And yeah, a unique approach, a different approach. Again, we are mentioning how it's not quite figured out what you're supposed to be doing with the Druid. But we've seen quite a lot of Relicario in the last race, and he's had a pretty good run with a really unorthodox bossing strategy later on that included some one-shots. And I thought Ziggy was kind of messing around with that, but no, it was straight up insta-killing bosses. So, hey, abuse early and abuse quick, boys, because this stuff is gonna get crazy.
Yeah, I was talking with people about what they thought Druid was capable of, and the general consensus is that these sort of sub 210 times that we've seen from rank 1 player practice sessions are definitely possible on Druid. So we'll see if Relicario can hold up. I certainly would love to see a Druid at the top of the ladder and get some change to the meta.
It is
Uh,
really interesting, though, the commitment to a particular class in PoE 2. In PoE 1, if people figure out something's the best, everybody switches over to that thing. But we've seen Angormus stick through seemingly bad metas for the warrior. And from what you're mentioning, if the druid has the possibility to be the best, and it kind of seems like he just might be, the fact that our players are not switching over, they're sticking to their classes, and they're truly min-maxing them to a ridiculous degree. I wonder if this is something that's going to pay off for them in the long run for players like Angormus or Whole New Society, or if it's maybe going to end up hurting them with players like Relicario really, really benefiting maybe a little bit from the stubbornness of his competition. Obviously, this is a class race, so everybody wants a demigod. You want to win your race, but come on, the brownie points of winning the rank 1 overall and never done before in a druid, I think that would go pretty hard. Definitely a memorable outcome for this event.
2240 on Angormus's timer to enter Ogham Village is a middle of the road time. It means that he's between 30 and 31 minutes to Geonor on current pace, though it depends if he decides to take an extra trip to town or anything like that. But that's really competitive pace. We'll have to see if other people can keep up with that. That's a pretty aggressive time. If we take a look at people's item RNG, Relicario is doing all this on what I would call a pretty disappointing Nettle Talisman. Its prefix is split increased physical damage and accuracy, which is one of the worst prefixes that you can possibly get. So when he gets to those level 10 talismans with the base fire damage, he'll probably see a big DPS upgrade. And I'm really excited to see this Wyvern Shapeshift Druid being able to keep up here. We also have a pretty conventional layout for Ogham Farmlands. You're going to see some layout difference here between players that have spent some time studying this zone, where the full solution is public only recently. Angormus actually has a build guide, not a build guide, excuse me, a layout discovery guide if you're curious. For Ogham Farmlands, that's on Mobilytics. He has a written guide for that, and you can see the kinds of things that players use. And that may explain a little bit of the separation between our sort of top 5 players and that next group, where there's just a little bit of layout knowledge difference coming to the fore here.
100%. I gotta say, I'm looking at this wyvern and it's pumping. It's like two-shotting rare mobs. This thing is crazy. He's not quite having the sort of progression that he was having before. And Gorm is now already in the Ogham village, picking up his smithing tools, setting himself up for the future. Meanwhile, Whole New Society, Guy That Dies, keeping up. I mean, this is really close. Two mercenaries, a druid, and a warrior. We've obviously got the ladder in the background. You guys can always check that for yourselves. But do keep in mind that just because a player is the highest XP, that doesn't necessarily mean that they've got the highest progression. There are different breakpoints that you're trying to get to prior to Geonor, be it for a skill or maybe a skill point that you want. So XP is still important. Mob density will determine much here and how efficiently you're going to be killing things. But nonetheless, going fast is key as Engormus begins his Executor, as we have now named him, boss fight.
Yeah, the
Looking pretty solid
Executioner
so
boss
far.
fight, particularly dangerous for Warrior. A lot of these slams, and Gormus right now has 264 HP and ES combined. Almost any of the Executioner slams, if he takes the full brunt of them, will kill him from full HP. Fortunately, Gormus
Executor.
is particularly comfortable with this. The Executor, sorry. The other thing
There
that
you go.
that's particularly important about Angormus' strategy here is that he did do some zone manipulation in the cemetery in order to try and force more opportunities to get that all-important Forge Maul for killing Geonor with, but he hasn't gotten an opportunity to get a natural drop here, so he's going to take a shopping trip. Bit disappointing here, about 40 seconds of time loss. It does mean that Whole New Society and Guy That Dies, who may not need to take a similar trip, can open up a little bit of a gap against Angormus, which is a really worrying sign for Angormus from a competitive perspective here. Warrior needs to be able to open up a gap in the first two acts in order to be able to compete with the Act 4 damage of the mercenary builds, especially if we see people going to the higher level 31 and 33 grenade builds. So this is a bit of a frustrating Act 1 for Angormus, I'm sure, but hopefully we'll be able to get him out and into the Mana Ramparts pretty quickly. If he's not able to enter Deshar about a minute ahead of the mercenaries, it's going to be a very uphill battle for him from a competitive perspective here.
I'm still hung up on how you called that amulet a disappointment. You know, typically in PoE, people call things good, bad. That disappointment, that just hits so much, so much harder,
I'm not
straight in the
mad.
heart.
I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, you're a disappointment to me, Amulet. As Angormus picks up a new weapon, definitely a little bit of a benefit, some flat damage on there. That's gonna help him out a lot for sure. Relicari, you're now fighting his Executor. And let's see what kind of damage output he's gonna be having here. Switching over to the bear form, making sure that his rage is nice and built up. And those swipes, they're pretty consistent. And I also gotta say, players are staying really safe this time around. You can see a lot more precision, a lot more practice. I think the first race really motivated people. It's always the first race is a little bit wonky, you know. They've put in a lot of work, they put in a lot of practice, but maybe there's some nerves here and there. But in this one, everybody seems to be a lot more precise. And so far, I think the run speed is showing it, right? It's looking pretty good for everybody.
Yeah, it's particularly interesting. I want to answer a question that I got tagged with in Twitch chat. Are runners allowed to
Oh,
use third-party tools to understand the map layout? I'm not a GGG employee, so I can't comment on terms of service violations, but I will tell you many runners, Angormus especially, will have second monitor notes to reference for particularly confusing zones. Valley of the Titans in Act 2 is a common place where people will have visual aids or various different compressed notes for that. Fakapanu as well. There are some flowcharts that people share with each other. But as far as plugins, I would have to imagine that that's uncommon. However, you're probably not going to win a race or even a demigod's virtue if you need to use much more than just a touch of extra notes here and there. So that's
yep.
the first question I can answer from Twitch chat. Are they allowed to use a plugin? I don't know. I would expect the answer is no. but,
Are you
but
allowed to cheat? Guys, no, I think you're not allowed to cheat. I'm
well, it
not
depends
sure.
what
I'm
the
not a
structure of the
GGG
plugin
employee
is.
here, but
Yeah. Depends what the structure of the plugin is. People use things like
true,
Exile
true.
Exchange to check currency prices. You never know.
All
It
right,
depends.
yeah, they could be. There was a
I
lot of
don't.
feedback about that in the past. Like,
Yeah.
we should not have these characters be voided. Okay, dude, just race. Come on.
Yeah,
Do you?
Angormus's mace is particularly good. He also has 5 to 7 fire damage on his gloves, so Angormus is going to have particularly good perfect strike damage. We can get some of those big juicy chunks here on Geonor in a second. As he works his way through the manor, we should expect to see some really good Geonor boss fight combat from him. One change that actually happened between 0.3 and 0.4 was patch notes revealed to us that there's initial damage reduction applied to most bosses. What the amount of that reduction is varies boss to boss, as I understand it, but those numbers aren't public to the player base. I don't know what they are. It appears to be really significant as a speedrunner who's done a lot of time testing damage mechanics against particular bosses. And so what you'll see players doing to adapt to this is that that damage reduction wears off either within the first several seconds or within the first few meters traveled for the boss. So you'll see a lot of people, both
Oh,
warriors and rangers in particular, kiting Geonor away from the center of the arena, often towards the edge of the arena, toward the elevator, in order to set up either pre-stacked grenades or lightning rods or pre-channel a perfect strike. And Gorm
oh
is
wow, that
having
is
a bit
so
of an
cool.
XP. And Gorm is having a bit of an XP issue here, wants to reach level 14 and finds a strong box that has magic packs on it. Magic packs particularly important for speedrunners as well as fast league starters. A magic monster gives exactly 3.5 times as much experience yield as a white monster of the same type. So as a consequence, seeing multiple strong boxes here with packs of magic monsters as well as good item modifiers means that Angormix is going to have his pick and be able to get really high level. So he jumped from 13.5 to 14.5 in one strong box there. And so that's another league start tip for you guys if you're trying to catch up on levels. If you see blue text, you should have some neuron activation and jump in there and kill the magic packs with particular fervor.
It can be a little bit tricky though, right? Because obviously you're not anticipating these boxes. So sometimes you might find yourself in a situation when you've already got enough XP, you've reached your breakpoint, and now there's all these boxes. You still feel like you have to do them, but maybe it's not always worth it. For Angormus, it absolutely works out, doing a little bit of inventory swapping while the dialogue goes through. And how much damage is this perfect strike gonna do? It's a chunker, not a crit first strike this time, as that did happen to him last time, but it's gonna be with the 360 enough damage to phase over Geonor. And with some quick dodges, he's going to be the first person, I believe, to reach phase 2, as Guys That Dies has already began his Geonor fight as well.
Yeah, we actually saw Angormus start the fight a few seconds after Guy That Dies, but get into that intermission phase um, a few seconds before, simply because of the really good item RNG available for Angormus with that mace and that set of fire damage gloves. The other thing that's really interesting is you'll see Guy That Dies perhaps not doing the strategy that I thought he would, where you kite Geonor during the intermission to be closer to a wall to pre-stack grenades underneath his feet, instead choosing to take an open area fight. It's not a significant time loss, it's just an ease of execution thing to get him closer to a wall, makes it easier to land your grenades. And then he also using his shield there to be able to block those ice beams and cancel that animation, one of the more
Holy Angormus!
dangerous places.
Wow! So close. He almost had the poetry phase, managed to just barely take down Geonor with some 360 perfect strikes. What an execution from Angorm, was perfectly timed. As unfortunately, Guy That Dies, he has to deal with this ad phase, and this is time that he really can't afford to lose. As yeah, once again, Angormus already in the Vesteria outskirts.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was saying earlier. Angormus needs to have this early lead, and so those those changes where it looked like Guy That Dies was catching up. He was a few seconds faster through Ogham Village. About 22 seconds is what I saw from production earlier, if memory serves. But now this poetry phase means that he's going to lose another 40 seconds back. So even though he started the Geonor fight earlier, it looks like because of that poetry phase, as well as slightly worse weapon damage and RNG, Guy That Dies is going to enter Act 2 pretty significantly behind Angormus at this point. Angormus also unequipping his chest piece here. He does have a decent level 11 chest piece, so his defenses will be fine
My
early
God.
on.
Sorry to interrupt you, Crimson, but this Bone Storm from Giluo is doing so much. The damage output on the Witch just gets so crazy. This is a caster class that does struggle at certain points of the game, but when it comes to single target, that's just never a problem. What a kill from our
Yeah,
Witch player here.
yeah. Jiluo is one of the most interesting players in all of PV2 racing. There's a contingent of Chinese players that collaborate with each other on developing Path of Buildings and other routing strategies. And then there's a contingent of English speaking players active on Twitch and Discord who share strategies with one another. And Jiluo is, of the Chinese players, the one with the strongest English language skills. And every now and then pops into my chat or Guy That Dies chat or Angormus's in order to touch base with him. So he's an important bottleneck in the conversation between Eastern and Western PoE2 racers. So I'm a big fan of
Mm.
Jiluo and hope that he does well on the Witch this week.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, they're doing extremely well right now. I think this is a great performance so far, as Guy That Die struggles to keep up. So do you think it was primarily the poetry phase, or like you mentioned, Warrior is just supposed to be a little bit ahead here. How well is Guided Dice really doing? I do believe that he wasn't quite able to practice the amount that he would want to. He wasn't quite able to play the last race as well. Like, what kind of outcome can we expect from him this time around?
Yeah, so I would expect Guy That Dies to do quite well just on having a really high floor of skill and preparation from
Right.
previous weeks, but certainly a little bit rusty, hasn't been able to practice as much as you would expect this week. I'll be curious to look at his early Act 2 weapon. You expect Warrior to finish Act 1 a bit before the Mercenary class, just in general, but also Angormus had particularly good damage RNG for that fight and was able to avoid poetry on the basis of having a really nice mace as well as a pair of gloves with that eye level 8 fire damage on them. So we'll have to go check in on Guy That Dies weapon RNG. I'll do that right now, actually, while we're looking at it. Clear
Meanwhile,
that.
we switch over to Li Donglin in the bottom left, who just took down his Hyena boss. This is a Druid who is utilizing the mercenary approach to things. So he's using a lot of grenades, and it took them pretty far last race. I am not 100% sure what was the end result for them, but he did do really well.
So far, the standings to kill Geonor are Angormus, Li Dong Lin on a Druid, Jiluo third, about a minute behind Angormus on a Witch, and then Guy That Dies fourth on that Mercenary, Keom fifth, Whole New Society sixth, and Driz in seventh. So a bunch of familiar names in the top from previous race ladders. One thing also that I want to point out, just circling back on that conversation, Guy That Dies has a level 10 crossbow equipped, but it has 3 to 5 cold damage on it. So he missed out on that upgrade, just didn't win his transmute and augment slams on this weapon, and as a consequence is missing a pretty significant portion of his overall flat damage that he could get. So he may not have gotten poetry if he had had better item RNG on that
Right.
sturdy crossbow base. Just shows how big of a deal that item RNG is, and hopefully we will see people be able to craft good level 16 weapons here. And Gormus making quick time though through Mata and Quarry. Bone Shatter doing a really, really good job at dealing with these larger mobs. It looks like he's also doing very well on levels at the moment. I think I just saw him roll level 15, so we'll see him upgrade to that studded Great Club momentarily. So Angormus making really, really good pace. A 37-minute time to halfway through this section is very, very good. He had a really good read on Vastiri Outskirts. I would expect other players to lose a little bit of time to him there. And we'll be curious to see what other players are able to do throughout Act 2 to make up that about 1 minute deficit that Angormus had, that 1 minute lead that Angormus had to the field out exiting Act 1.
So much precision from our Gormus. He knows exactly where the items are going to drop, picks it up immediately, getting a lot of blue packs as well. So, really making sure that that bone zone is fully utilized. Great run from him so far. And another thing that you guys might have missed, and I certainly did, the single target from Jiluo was once again insane on the Hyena boss. I wonder what kind of AoE clear we can expect here. Still using the Essence Drain Contagion approach. And it looks pretty good. I gotta say, this is some great DPS. Potentially, he's got a nice weapon to really help him out with this. Doing a little bit of kiting. It does leave you vulnerable, like we mentioned previously, but man, even a rare monster, he takes it down so quickly. This witch is looking strong. It's really not something that we've been seeing from many of the caster classes in the past, but man, this absolutely looks competitive for sure.
Yeah, especially super early on, which can get away with quite a lot. The amount of spell and chaos damage available on the tree is really, really good. Also, he has a very strong staff. Actually, Jiluo has a staff that gives him a chance to outright rank 1. This is a nuts staff if production is able to highlight it for the field. But I'll just read it to you. It has +2 all spell levels, 54% increased spell damage, 29% gain as cold, and 19% cast speed. It's also socketed with a
Holy.
lightning rune. This is straight up, this is the weapon that you're hoping for. If you want to see a witch stay competitive, finish rank 1 or really, really high up the ladder, Jiluo has the ability to do this. This is a absolutely insane Act 1 staff. And
This
it may
makes
be the case
sense.
that he's using this to hold all the way through there. Jiluo is certainly capable of this performance without a staff this good, but this is a very happy day for our favorite Chinese witch.
Yeah, I mean, it looks a little bit unusual. Again, once people are improving and we're getting better and better times, but this damage, it looked like nothing that we've seen before. But I do think that again, especially for the caster approach, I think survivability becomes an issue at some point. Although we have seen some Demon Mommy last week and they had like 800 energy shield or something. So maybe survivability is not as big of an issue as it was in the prior events, as Angormus already in the Muldoon mines, looking for his boss. Doesn't have to look too hard. A pretty simple zone to read. And we'll be taking down a blue pack as Lee Dong Lin is loading into his Muldoon mine. Guy that dies still trying to progress. A little bit of a delay on his explosive grenades can make things tricky, as you do have to kind of pile mobs together and try and really set them up for one big explosion, the flash grenade, helping him not just with the DPS, but also keeping it safe. And Giluo will now be doing the mechanic once again for that big reward. Actually, he just gets some mobs and gets the hell out of there. As Angormus already begins his Rugia fight, the 360. The boss stumbles back, but Angormus still just barely manages to hit it. She's knocked down, half HP. Will he be able to finish it with this big hit? It's going to be just enough. The Ignite, it's just too powerful, paired up with that massive amount of single hit damage. Great stuff from Angormus.
Yeah, that those 360 no scopes, shout out MLG Gaming. And Gurmis claims that doing
Hell
these
yeah.
360 perfect strikes are he claims that it gives a damage buff. I encourage you guys to try that in your own runs. If you get through Act 1 with Perfect Strike, try a
Makes
360
sense
no
to me.
scope on Geonor. See if you can hit the headshot. A question from Twitch chat is whether or not I personally enjoy seeing everyone use Pounce. The answer is yes. I think that one of the most beautiful things about Racing Theorycraft is all these cross-class synergies. And so the introduction of Druid, which added Pounce, which added a whole lot of utility for mark skills with things that we'll get to in late Act 2 and early Act 3, there's a lot of cross-class synergy that I personally really enjoy. So yeah, I really do enjoy seeing a lot of
Bat
werewolf-shaped pouncings.
Crimson! My immersion! Shut up! This is a race. We're trying to break the game over here, okay? Get that immersion stuff out of here. These guys are trying to go as quick as possible. All right? This is not the forum for you to give this sort of feedback. Nonetheless, though, we respect it. Obviously, I'm a little bit joking here. As Li Donglin, let's see what kind of damage output he's going to be having. Once again, this is a druid, although he is using a crossbow. Not nearly as much, I would say, as we've been seeing out of the mercenaries, but still looking pretty good. And yeah, I really wonder how this is comparing with our Wyvern approach.
I'm sorry. I'm looking through the support gem links for Giluo. This man must be having like the best RNG anyone's ever had. He has excess support gems. So in Contagion, he has Magnified Area, which is a luxury. Usually you just have Unleash. He has both Unleash and Magnified Area. Essence Drain has Swift Affliction, which is normal, but he also has Chain 2, which is again a luxury. And he has full sockets in his Bone Storm as well. His Bone Storm tooltip, by the way, is over 1,300. It's 1,342. That's crazy. That's an insane.
Crazy!
That's a crazy tooltip for him to have on Bone Storm this early. Typically, something like 800 on a Witch or on an EDC Bone Storm Druid at this point is normal. He has nearly double the tooltip that's normal
It
at this time.
shows.
This is a crazy run for him. Excess support gems. He has a spare Regal and Exalt to be able to craft some defensive gear later on in the run. He has an amulet that's helping boost his int to deal with the mana pool required for these higher level spells. He's having completely ridiculous item RNG right now. Now, Giluo is a very, very high skill player, and we expect to see him at or near the top of the race ladder to start with, but this is an all-timer. This is a banger of an Act 1 and early Act 2 for his item RNG.
I love to hear it, especially since we're seeing a Balbala kill, which indicates that they are going to be going for the Ascendancy, and that's just going to make things so much more spicy. Yes, it's a pretty substantial time sink, but the damage is only going to get crazier from this point onwards. Giluo being able to keep up, as long as he's able to also maintain his survivability, is going to be great. I gotta say, I mean, I don't want to say I'm disappointed, but we haven't seen any rips yet. Friendly reminder, there is a 2.5-minute penalty if our players die, but everybody's just getting a little bit too good in these early stages. I don't think it's going to be the same case for our final act, as players die a lot, and much is determined in those final moments for many of them. But as of right now, there are players dying. This isn't just the 4 players that you're seeing on the screen. There are a lot of players in this race overall. But I'm trying to curse them as much as possible. It's just not working. Nobody's dying. What's happening?
Yeah, I'll try as well. I'll try as well.
Hell yeah.
One thing, just to give people an update on the ladder progression, obviously you guys can see the experience ladder, but in terms of progression to Ruja, production is telling me that Angormus was first, Jiluo had a kill 16 seconds later and is making up time. Lidong Lin, a Druid player, is 1.5 minutes behind Angormus, Kiom fourth on the Ranger, Whole New Society fifth, Guy sixth, and Shaka on the Huntress seventh. Shaka, very friendly, sent me some notes on Huntress progression. Not a native English speaker, but did a whole lot to help me understand the class in the preparation for this. So I hope that we get a chance to follow up with him later on in the race. But it should
For
be
sure.
spreading out a bit more than it currently is. Angormus has a decent lead over a couple of players. Like we said, he's only 16 seconds ahead of Jiluo to Ruja, but as you can see on your screen, they're in exactly the same position in Halani Gates. Jiluo, however, killed Balbala, and so he actually lost some time to get that Barya, and then will also lose some
Right.
time to ascend. So Angormus, if he plays cleanly, will have something like an 8-minute advantage just because he doesn't need to ascend, and the time to get to the Trial of the Sekimaz as well as to run the full trial will lose some time for Jiluo, but that Demon Form Ascension is especially powerful. So we should see the field stringing out a bit more over the course of these next couple of zones. Another thing, just to benchmark this against people's practice runs, Angormus is on very good pace. He's leading the race, but his time to enter Halani Gates is a bit slow compared to what he enjoys in practice. He tells me that in practice he consistently gets 40 or 41s, those being
Oh
41
wow.
minutes to enter Halani Gates, and this time he was at 44:20 is the screenshot that I grabbed. So it looks like he's a little bit slower
This
than his
damage
practice
is
runs.
stupid. I'm sorry, Jiluo. What is he doing to this boss? Jamanra does not stand a chance. He
Yeah,
just
this is
instantly killed him.
his tooltip damage. Now that he's leveled up his skill gem, he has an effective level 8, 6 from the gem, 2 from the staff. He has 1727 Bone Storm tooltip before he has his Lesser Jeweler's Orb, before he's in the end game. Just to give you guys some idea of how insane that tooltip is, typically the tooltip DPS for Explosive Grenade in late Act 3 is this number. So Jiluo has completely insane Bone Storm damage right now.
It's crazy, and it's really helping, I gotta say, because yeah, I mean, he has more to do for sure, and Angormus still has his big timing. He will be changing his setup. This isn't the final setup for a warrior whatsoever. Shields are going to become a big part of the warrior speedrun very soon. Nonetheless, Jiluo managing to stay ahead. How quickly is he going to be able to do his ascendancy? As now, you might see that he's just standing around town, but this is just the limitations of our casting tools. He is in fact vendoring and trying to optimize his gear while he was just standing there. The only reason why you can see it from Ungormus is because we are watching his stream because we love those Angormas reactions. Very expressive player. You know when things are going right, and you absolutely get to know when things are going wrong. So for Angormas, so far, not a whole lot of movement of the eyebrows or anything like that. It seems like he's at the very least not disappointed. Although I gotta say, Crimson, you just surprised me. 7 minutes behind what he would consider average for Halani Gates.
No,
That's
no,
kind
no,
of
no. Closer to 3 minutes. He usually
okay.
enters at 41. Instead, he entered at 44. So he's about
Okay,
3 minutes
okay.
ahead of his verbal heuristic that he gave to me. Obviously, item RNG and layouts vary. Like I mentioned, this particular Act 1 had like an insane ordering of the zones. For anyone who doesn't know in Twitch chat, if you look at the overworld map art on any character that you have in any league, the in-zone zone orderings should match what the overworld map says. So, for example, if Cemetery of the Eternals is to the left of Hunting Grounds, they should connect in that order in the actual zones. And this was a very unusual map art seed early on. Production is telling me that Angormus is actually 10 seconds behind Jiluo to see the sandstorm, but as you guys can see on the top right of your screen, Jiluo is now going through a whole trial of Sekima's Ascendancy, which will be curious to measure exactly how much time he loses to this trial of the Sekimas. Typically, the estimate is between 6 and 8 minutes, depending on what exactly he gets in the trials. So 10 seconds ahead, and then we'll see how many minutes behind he comes out of this. But that Demon Form Ascendancy should help him to have massive cast speed and spell damage over the course of the rest of the run there.
And as much as we're talking about Angormus and Juluo here, Li Donglin is only 30 seconds behind Juluo, and he's, for the most part, keeping up with Angormus. Meanwhile, we also, in the bottom right, switched over to Kiom, a Ranger player who has had a lot of great results in past races. I'm pretty sure that he won the Ranger race last week. We've definitely seen him switch through different classes, but it seems like they are settling on Ranger. Actually, I am fully lying to you. I think it was, yeah, it was Lisa Ra last week, of course. The player you
Uh,
previously mentioned, Crimson.
yeah, and Gormus is doing a really
Hume was
phenomenal
second.
job doing a really, really phenomenal job with kiting this Mastodon boss on top of the Summoner. Being able to get perfect strikes off on both of these bosses at the same time is really, really important there in order to get better DPS uptime. And Angormus had exceptionally good execution. That's a particularly challenging thing there. He also got a unique spear that he'll be able to sell to get a little bit of gold, and we'll see him switch to his level 16 weapon in a moment. He is level 16. It's just a lot of these rolling slam bone shatters. If you do too much damage, um, if you do too much damage on that initial rolling slam, then you actually kill the mob, and so you can't get the larger
Right.
AoE of your bone shatter. So he's actually holding back a bit on his weapon damage by deliberately equipping a lower DPS weapon to get that larger AoE. Jiluo making great time through his Ascendancy by my clock. He's getting pretty good layouts here in terms of the options. You can see that he's had a bunch of rituals, and with this exceptionally good staff, a lot of this EDC is able to clear these trials very, very quickly here, and we'll see him get back out onto the field of play through the main quest line in a moment.
And we are seeing a little bit of a different approach, or we will be seeing in terms of which zones our players are going to be doing first. That depends on the class and the sort of items that you're looking for, right? There's some level relevance here, I believe.
Yes, so you'll see people doing things in different orders. Um, I'm getting notes from production. Whole New Society is going for the water first. Kiom is going for the water first, but both Guyan and Gormus went for the tusks along with Shaka. Typically, what you're doing when you order those zones that way, if you do Mastodon Badlands first, that pushes the area level of Keth up. So when you kill um, the Kabbalah, the Snake Queen, the skill gem that she drops for you is a level 7 instead of a level 6. And for a lot of builds, having an extra level 7 is particularly important. For example, on Shield Wall, you want to be able to cut both Leap Slam and Shield Wall. So that's a big difference there.
Jilua is done.
That's
Boom,
really
just like
fast.
that. The boss is down. That was a quick lab, right?
That was very fast. And we'll see him going for Demon Form, no doubt. It'll be really interesting to see people's Deshar entry times. Most players were a little bit slow to Halani Gates. Like I said, we expect absolute leaders to go in the 40 to 42 minute range on most runs, and we saw times closer to 44 today. So we'll probably see Deshar entry times of 105 to 108, and that's when we'll be able to sort of get a hold on exactly how the field is doing. One thing that you may notice is Ranger players in particular, Lisa was explaining this to me a bit earlier, is Ranger players have particularly bad time on Lightning Arrow with the Valley of the Titans boss. And so as a consequence, Ranger on bow-based skills may be the only class that does Valley of the Titans first.
Oh, that's super interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it turns out that if you have a good level 16 weapon, you'll go out of your way to do that first. So that way you can hope to kill the Valley of the Titans boss before he moves off of your first stack of lightning rods. If he moves off of your first stack of lightning rods, apparently repositioning that second stack of lightning rods for him to move, for some reason, they just don't hit the boss as consistently. And so you go out of your way to try and do him early because he's just a mechanical interaction with Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod that's particularly important. So Lisa may be doing that differently. We noticed that Kiom, despite being on Ranger, is playing grenades, which doesn't have that problem. So he's doing a much more conventional zone ordering.
Meanwhile, Angormus, already having dealt with his Kabbalah, is now progressing through the Lost City. Jilua, what kind of damage output is he going to be having here? Now Ascended, the Infernalist, still putting out those Bone Storm in the demon form, and Kabbalah will have no say in this fight. I wouldn't even really call it a battle. This is just an absolute beatdown. Huge damage output still coming up from Jiluo. I would love to see what kind of survivability they're having. If we can just check the HP bar. No energy shield going on right now. Obviously, you have to manage your life flask, and I believe that is 400 HP, which, yeah, degenerates, so you always have to manage things, and only 130 energy shield. So not a whole lot. Definitely not the sort of numbers that we were seeing last week, but that's probably going to be a big priority for our Infernalist here. And man, that dash is just so fast. You know, as you mentioned before, Crimson, looking at Twitch chat, we've had some players disappointed that everybody's using the Druid form. Nothing like that for the Witch. And guess what? You still have so much speed and you don't need the pounce for it whatsoever. Great
Yeah,
stuff from
and
Giluo.
And just to keep track of that time loss to Ascendancy, where Witch is the only class that we expect to have rank 1 potential while ascending. He was 10 seconds ahead of Angormus before the Ascendancy, and now he's 5 minutes 40 seconds behind. Thank you to production for giving us that note. So he lost 5 minutes and 50 seconds. So a pretty quick Ascendancy. Like I said, the typical estimate is 6 to 8 minutes, but he's performing particularly well, perhaps having this exceptionally good staff or just having good room layouts. That said, he's having a bit of difficulty reading the layout in Lost City, so
Uh-oh.
Angormus should be able to hold up here. It's just a pure 50-50 on going right or left, and he happened to guess incorrectly and go right. But now that he's found the bridge on the top side of the zone, he should be able to do significantly better in catching up to Angormus. The rest of the zone should be a pretty easy read. We'll also see Angormus here in Buried Shrines looking out for the League mechanic. Finding the boss and finding the ring point of interest are particularly easy, but the League mechanic can be randomly placed in any of several different locations. So we'll see a lot of players losing significant time as they go out of their way to hunt down that League mechanic. It's a lesser Jeweler's Orb, which of course, depending what support gem you choose to apply with that, is typically used for about 30% more damage against bosses, which is particularly important for Shield Wall. As Shield Wall, if you have a bad shield early on in Act 2, when you first transition to Shield Wall, that third support gem can be particularly important in pushing that damage floor up and allowing you to get stuns off on some bosses like Azarian the Forgotten Sun, who otherwise would be pretty difficult and would move around, and that fire degen on the floor can be particularly threatening. So
He's not gonna be doing any moving around for Kiyomi. First person to take him down, and it was clean. Wow, the damage from the Ranger is really impressive right now. Gorm is going a little bit back, trying to find some extra stuff in the buried shrines. And yeah, also getting lost by Jiluo, that's extra punishing, right? Because he had to ascend, so he has a little bit more XP, as sometimes you're just forced to kill monsters in that zone. So now when you're getting lost, you really, sometimes when you get lost, you know, you run into some more monsters. It's not as bad. But if you're already ahead on XP, it's just that extra punishing, especially when you know that it's a 50-50 that you're losing. Angormus with a 360, not a headshot. That mace is going up somewhere where it probably shouldn't. Azarian will not be happy about it, but he also will not be able to say much about it either, as he is stunned. And with this next 360, Angormus gets knocked out of his perfect strike, drops low, stays alive, however, and Azarian finally drops. Little bit of a hiccup there, but not enough to shake up a top player like Angormus.
Yeah, there's an interesting change in O.4 with the addition of, in particular, Ferocious Roar for the Warrior, a level 7 skill gem that can be used as a war cry, and for rage generation, it has different uses on different classes. But with the addition of that skill gem, the set of passives that you're able to apply to your primary and secondary weapon swap changes a little bit for the Warrior. I can give extensive insight into this if people are curious, but in essence, Angormus will have slightly lower stun threshold at this point in the run than he otherwise would, but have the same endpoint stun threshold. So we should see, it's not surprising, for example, that he would get stunned out of that perfect strike animation. That's just a consequence of some
Oh,
changes in passive tree ordering.
Julio. Sorry, Crimson, but Julio, this is my favorite part when you're playing Essence Drain and you do this little shrine event. So much XP and such a satisfying clear. Oh, I love it every time.
And
Beautiful.
then I do want to give one more answer to Twitch chat. Thank you to Love Venerable for tagging me. Why did Angormus go into the Vol ruins and check the temple ruins first time you saw that? You're looking for thaumaturgy labs. The room reward for clearing a thaumaturgy lab is a lesser jeweler's orb. And as you can see, for example, on Giluo's screen, as we saw earlier for Angormus, trying to find this league mechanic to get this deterministic lesser jeweler's orb from the league mechanic in buried shrines can be
Ooh.
significant time loss. So if you get lucky on the item RNG with the room RNG in your temple and get a thaumaturgy lab, you can avoid all this time loss, and it ends up saving 1 or 2 minutes, depending on exactly how bad your buried shrines backtracking is as you try to hunt down your randomly spawned league mechanic position.
And Gorma is getting a little bit ahead of himself there. He's going for the switch up on his abilities, dropping a lot of gems, messing with his inventory, moving things around, runs into a pack of mobs, drops really low, but once again, stays alive. And that's really all that you need. You cannot afford to suffer this 2.5 minute penalty. It is just so crucial. And it really also just shakes you up, right? You're just sitting there. These guys are micromanaging their inventory so perfectly. You can see how clean it is every time, even for Nargormus now, when he's in that transitional period, his inventory is still flawless. So it's not like you're just gonna sit there and mess around with stuff. Like, no, these guys are ready to go. They're not ready for a death whatsoever. He's going to be getting that unique item there. IDing it? Is it good?
No,
Crimson?
it's
Do you
not
know
a
this one?
particular. It's not a particularly good one. It's a low-level chainmail that you use for
Ah,
bleed-based builds in Act One. That said, Angormus, just taking a look at his early shield here, he has an ephegeal tower shield. It has the prefix lacquered, which is one of the lowest level, I believe actually the lowest level flat armor amount that you can get. It's T10. You'd be looking for ribbed or fortified are the names of the prefixes that you'd really like to see, which would have 3 or 4 times this amount of flat armor addition to his shield. So Angormus is going to start to get really, really shield hungry over the course of late Act 3 here, and we'll hope to see him find something really significant as an upgrade, but he's going to struggle on DPS until then. Right now, his total shield armor is around 80, and we'd expect him to have a really frustrating time until he can at least double that and hit something like the 160 to 180 mark.
yeah, I remember Angorma being really disappointed in the race last week, and I think at this stage he had already over 90, and that was, yeah, once again, a massive disappointment for him. So definitely not going to be happy about this. I do think that, fortunately for him, though, I've seen him try to craft a bunch of different shields, and he kept like the first really just with anything shield, and that's the one that unfortunately he's having to use over here, as we have just seen Julio and Kiom take down bosses in a really quick fashion. Some scary bosses too. The Mastodon, those were some of the boss fights that we've seen very many consistent rips on last week. No deaths so far. Julio still has a little bit of a ways to go to the boss, but I think that's going to be something cool to watch out for as he enters the bone pits. And I wonder, right? Because Bone Storm, this is going to be especially difficult to land. You kind of have to pull those bosses together and try to get as much damage into both of them at once. I wonder how possible and how safe it is to do that with Bone Storm, as channeling up that ability does leave you quite vulnerable, especially his low energy shield state currently.
I've gotten permission from production to swear on stream. Holy fucking shit. Li Lin has the craziest
Damn.
crossbow I've ever seen. God damn. It has flat fire. It has 13 to 26 flat fire and a literally perfect roll 3 to 43 lightning. To give you guys any idea of how significant that is, that means that that lightning modifier does as much damage as the base item itself. This is an insane crossbow. Li Lin about 10 seconds ahead of Angormus to get 2 MacGuffins is what I'm told by production. This is the craziest crossbow I've seen on an Act 2 run from anyone in the last month. Like, no matter how many hundreds of practice runs I've done myself, or watched Guy do, or watched Whole New Society do, or seen people's clips and VODs, this is the nuttiest crossbow I've seen. This is obscene.
Speaking of nutty, Jiluo now up to his boss fight. He doesn't care if there's an enrage mechanic. He's two-shotting the Mastodon anyway. No problem, just like that. I gotta say, Crimson, you really sent it there, Mama Mia.
I mean, it deserved it. I'm just letting you know there was no way to convey the weight
I
of
feel
this
it.
crossbow without doing like, goddamn.
I get it. I listen. I'm all for it. Let's go. Production never lets me swear. Come on, guys.
I asked in production chat. They gave me the go-ahead. Gilo currently ninth to have 2 MacGuffins, so despite that Ascendancy staying in close contact with people, we're seeing Li Donglin staying in first position here as he's going to be the first to kill the Titan boss, and then Angormis close behind finding that boss arena right now. So we'll see whether or not this Druid, fueled by like just the absolute craziest crossbow in gaming history, whether or not Angormis will be able to stay in contact with that with his mediocre shield RNG.
I mean, you can swear here too. His shield is fully shit, no? Like this thing is terrible.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. We got it. We have to emphasize on both ends.
hell yeah. I mean, that thing is absolutely a disappointment. But yeah, Kiam is going for some pretty big progression here. Giluo, is Giluo catching up? Is he just staying closely behind? What's happening? Is this demon form doing well enough? Maybe we can have some updates, as it is a little bit difficult to judge here. He will be entering the Titan Grotto soon. I'm not quite sure if he is still the 5.5 minutes behind where he was previously. He
It
gained a
looks like,
little bit of time already. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
production is saying that he gained around 10 seconds back already. We'll
Hmm.
see whether or not Angormis can extend that there. Speaking of insane crossbows, chat tagging me and telling me that Guy That Dies similarly absolutely popping off. I think he has a literally perfect roll. Yes, he has a literally perfect roll of increased physical damage paired with a literally perfect roll of flat physical damage.
My
paired
God.
paired with the best possible tier of cold damage. We will see, there is no doubt, we will see Guy That Dies go at either level 28 or 31. This crossbow enables some very, very aggressive strats from Guy That Dies.
And
We're
what
going
a,
to see a very interesting race in Acts 3 and 4 with these crossbows in these players' hands. You're going to see people go for insanely aggressive strategies, I have no doubt.
I think it's already pretty interesting. We haven't really seen a race this close at this stage of the game previously. Typically, people came together a lot closer in about Act 3, and obviously they stayed somewhat close in Act 1, but in Act 2, seeing everybody together like this, it's really great. And yeah, Guy That Dies now on the screen going over to the Path of Burning. Crimson, what do you think in terms of when we're talking about these crossbows? Is it better to have the physical damage, or is it better to have the same amount of elemental damage? How exactly does the scaling work? Do the bosses have different sorts of resistances?
So the resistances are a little bit relevant. Who you ask, you'll get different answers. From a
Oh,
pure DPS perspective, the best possible elemental crossbow is better than the best possible physical crossbow on the item level
oh.
16 base. However, what becomes interesting now that we're starting to see players polish late Act 3 and all of Act 4 bossing strategies, stunning bosses on particular timings can be important, and you have 50% more stun buildup with physical damage than you do with elemental, which means
Right.
that you sacrifice some DPS, but you'll get some boss fight timing consistency out of physical. Now, that said, if you have the best possible crossbow, something like what either Guy That Dies or Lei Dong Lin has, you will see some very aggressive stuff here. To give chat, who've been asking me very politely for a top 5 recap, I asked production on Deshar entry. Guy is in first, Li Dong Lin 39 seconds behind, and Gormis a minute 20 behind, Whole New Society 2 minutes 4 seconds behind, fifth not entered as of the moment that production tagged me.
We are
So
close
we've
though. Jiluo, what kind of single target are we seeing here? Probably still using the same weapon, but now with the demon form, loses all of his energy shield. He's gonna have to stay focused in regards to his HP. But yeah, the boss doesn't have a healing potion. He's gonna go down. Definitely the fastest kill. So it does seem like he's losing a little bit of time, maybe in terms of the AoE clearing, and maybe some layout knowledge possibly lacking there. But the single target, it is not just keeping up. It is the highest that we've seen, regardless of what kind of crossbow any of these other players are having.
to use an expression that's common to American baseball broadcasts,
He's gonna swear again.
it's getting late early, folks. Guy That Dies with
Okay.
this crossbow being in first uh, as one of the more practiced bossing players at this top racing level. If he's in first position with this crossbow, literally perfect IPD, literally perfect flat fizz, and a good roll of cold damage to boot. He doesn't have plus levels of projectiles, but that matters less on weapon builds than it does on spells. If Guy the Dice can hold this lead into mid Act 3, if we see him, for example, first to enter Chimeral Wetlands, it's his race to lose at this particular moment. So we'll have to double check back with production as we see people enter Sandswept Marsh. That said, Guy the Die is a little bit low on the experience at the moment, level 25 and a quarter. He wants to be something like 25 and 3/4 or 26 flat to enter this, to exit this zone. And he's starting to struggle a little bit on finding that mob XP. That said, taking XP later with a crossbow this good is very easy because you just clear the mobs faster when you have more damage. So Guy that Dies should be in a very competitive position, and it's getting late in the race, early in the race.
You gave me a little bit of a heart attack there talking about American expressions. I gotta say, I wasn't expecting that one, but
No.
thank you
It's
for
getting late
sparing
early
my poor ears.
is a baseball broadcast thing.
Okay, I like it. We've got Guy that Dies on Torgul, waiting for that little bit of a spawn animation, and let's see what this little punching bag has in store for Guy that Dies here. And mostly I'm talking about loot because this boss is a real pushover as Guy that Dies delivers a lot of damage. The stun build up almost non-existent. This boss has a lot of stun resistance. A lot of the large bosses in PoE do so. And yeah, this damage is good, but man, does this guy just have a lot of HP, or do we think that Julio does like 3 times more? I mean, we have yet to see his Torgul fight, but
so what's interesting about Mercenary is that between levels approximately 16 and 26, you're taking a lot of quality of life nodes just because of what's available in that section of the tree. So he'll be taking grenade cooldown time or +1 grenade cooldown use, as well as a bunch of travel nodes. And then now as we enter into the later portion of the run where he's level 26, 28, and 30, now he's going to start taking DPS nodes again. So we're just seeing the natural effect of the tree positioning of the node that he's going to take, where your damage tapers in late Act 2 on a Mercenary, and then it'll catch back up in late Act 2 and early Act 3 as he's able to take those last couple of increased damage points.
Angorma is getting chunked once again. He has to be very tactical about his HP. It is a resource, and he is utilizing it perfectly, staying alive while maximum output is happening for him. His damage is decent. Does he have a new shield? What's happening here?
Yeah, if you want to grab that on Spectator Client, I want to catch chat up on our favorite Chinese witch, Ji Luo, who's trying to climb the ranks after having lost time to Ascending. He's gained a minute since last we checked, 6th to enter Deshar. He's climbed from a 5-minute 50 deficit back up to a 4-minute 25 deficit. Still has that insane staff as well as the superior clear speed of Essence Drain Contagion. So we'll have to see what he can do. Ji Luo, in talking to him, seems to prefer a slightly higher level strategy, continuing to take XP as late as Motlin Waterways. So we'll have to see probably a death from a top rank player in order for Ji Luo to have a chance at rank 1 overall. That said, it's certainly anyone's game this early on, and if I'm the field and I've heard that Guy that Dies has an excellent S tier crossbow, it's time to start taking on some risky strategies. It's time to start seeing a level 31 warrior push. It's time to start seeing other people going at low level strategies on Mercenary. And so we will have to catch up here. I'm very curious to see the Sandswept Marsh entry time deficit between Guy that Dies and the field, though. Guy that Dies first to enter Dreadnot. Vanguard, very significant here.
And Garmus once again walking that line, has to go for the reset. Drops a cheeky smile there after he has to go back to the checkpoint, dropping a little bit lower than usual. Not really that comfortable for him whatsoever, but a little bit more XP. We have been seeing a lot of players clear through this zone to get those levels going. And also, yeah, you mentioned that the waterways is going to be possibly the final zone where Ji Luo is going to be getting XP. That's a good zone to get XP in, right? We have seen a lot of players struggle with survivability in it and really finding that balance between killing monsters and pressing those levers. So I wonder if that approach is going to work out for him.
I'm receiving a note. I'm going to read this verbatim. Production has told me that Angormus' shield is still poop. That is what was that is what was written in production chat. I just want you guys to know. I can grab the exact thing if you want, but Angormus not having a particularly good time on shield RNG. That said, still maintaining contact with Guy That Dies, only a couple of minutes deficit to enter the Dreadnot Vanguard. And if Guy That Dies going at one of these more aggressive low-level strategies has even a single death, we'll be able to see Angormus catch back up there.
Since we are able to kind of judge hit their DPS based off of how quickly Torgul was dying, and Angormus still looked fairly okay compared to the output from Guy That Dies. What would you say is like a comparable version of a shield to the sort of crossbow that Guy That Dies has? Once again, it's a holy shit type of crossbow. So what kind of armor are we looking at for
Like like
Angormus's shield?
like 185 to 200 plus, like really
Right.
an insane shield. That
And
said,
he's got 90 or like
yeah,
80 something.
yeah,
Okay.
and and there's something to be said for the fact that Shield Wall Warrior has a damage doubling occur at level 31, so Angormus is going to have significantly better damage later on when he fixes his shield and gets Fortifying Cry. But I do just want to catch Twitch chat
If
up on a concept here. The ladder that you're seeing when you look at the ladder is sorted by XP. The race is decided based on zone clears. So the ladder is a course heuristic. And so if you're saying so and so is the top druid or so and so is the top ranger, we are trying to communicate to you guys the zone clear times, just so that way you guys can keep more up to front with the forefront of the race. And the XP may be a bit misleading, as people may take more XP early or more XP late. And so it's better to think about things. If you have questions about the ordering of particular classes, we can always ask production to drop us a note on times to enter particular zones, and that way we can get that information out to you guys. But the ladder may be a touch misleading.
especially now, because we are going to be seeing some players stopping to XP entirely very soon. Oftentimes we see players, at level 35, 36, 40, but other players have already finished the race, so at level 29 or whatever. So yes, it
Yeah.
can be a little bit deceiving. We are trying to keep an eye out for you guys. Jiluo, what kind of single target is he going to be having here? That build up does take up some time, but once again, the Bone Storm. This is not normally. You gotta check him PC. I wonder if he's still using the same staff. That is a little bit of a negative, I guess, of sorts. That if your weapon is super good early on, upgrading it will become difficult. But possibly he could have gotten a new one. Not quite just yet, but once again, +2 to spells with the 50 spell damage and 19 cast speed. Incredible stuff from our witch, as hopefully he's continuing to upgrade his defenses as well, so he can reach much higher amounts of energy shield. While Angormus going for the XP, going for the reset once again. Li Donglin entering the Dreadnought Vanguard. And I wonder, right? Because this is the stage of the game we've talked about mercenaries having different approaches to what level they're going to be finishing the race at, as Guy That Dies, speaking of mercenary, is now already fighting Jamonra. I wonder if that approach changes for the Druid. Is he going for 29, 31? Is he getting that Bombardier crossbow? We're going to have to
I
wait and see.
in talking with Guy That Dies before the race, he said he would have to have an insane crossbow in order to go at 28 or 31. He has an insane crossbow. He said to me before the race, when we were talking about what his plans were, that he was intending to go at 33 and it would require unreal item RNG in order for him to go at a lower
Really?
level. But he has had unreal item RNG. He has like not just the correct modifier tiers, but perfect rolls of those correct modifier tiers. So I'll be curious to see what he decides. It looks like he still took a little bit of extra XP after hitting 28, so maybe we'll see a 31 from him, just to be able to equip a higher level flask, as well as to get to level 9 skill gems. Level 9 skill gems, unlike a lot of other skill gem tiers that racers will be using, are exceptionally abundant in the campaign. You get a level 9 from killing Root Dredge, you get a level 9 from killing Monkey, you get a level 9 from the Chimeral Wetlands League mechanic, you get a level 9 from the Chimera, and that means that you can just push your skill level floor up if you're willing to extend a little bit to 31 instead of 28. So that's the benefit that he's looking for, as well as upgrading to a level 30 flask. So I'll be curious to see what he does to upgrade, to update you guys on the ladder standings. As far as entering Dreadnought Vanguard, Guy was in the lead and Gormus a minute and 14 behind. Whole New Society 324. And Li Donglin, despite that crossbow that I swore about, is now 4 minutes and 20 seconds behind, no longer blazing it with that exceptional fire damage crossbow.
Maybe a little bit of a case of the tabulast for Li Donglin here. He's got so much RNG, he doesn't know what to do with it. So he's struggling. And yeah, as much as we were talking about the sort of damage that you can get with this crossbow, it is important to once again mention that this is a progression race. So being able to not get level 33 and maybe instead go for 21 or for 31 or maybe even 29, that's a lot of mobs that you normally would be killing that now you're not spending the time to do so. So not just a safer boss, a faster boss, but just so much more optimization that you can go for in terms of your finish time. However, I mean, being lower level, does that potentially decrease the amount of gear that they can have and makes them a little bit more vulnerable? Can boss fights be more dangerous in the final parts of the race?
Yeah, absolutely. Guy that dies, for example, if we take a look at his defensive items, he has a plate belt. He has an acceptable steel plate, the level 27 pure armor chest piece, but he has a really good helm. In fact, funnily enough, his helm has more armor than his chest piece at the moment,
Nice.
which is, classic PoE2 things. He also has 15% MS boots. He's still taking experience as we go through the Sandswept Marsh here, which is a clear flag that he's intending to go to at least 31. He maintains a lead here, though.
Juan
So
Gormez going for the shield crafts, hitting the exalts, 149 armor from what I'm seeing here. He qualities it up, 179. He's gonna throw in the rune, and that's a decent shield, right? You were mentioning that you
179,
need
very
something.
good.
You need something close to 200. I think with the rune, it would have
Yeah.
been
Oh
enough.
yeah. Oh, we're gonna see fast Act threes and fours with these weapons. We've got
Let's
great
go.
crossbows on a couple of different people. I need to check in on what Whole New Society's crossbow looks like, but we've got Giluo with an insane staff. We've got Angormis with a 200 plus armor shield. We've got Li Donglin and Guy that Dies with exceptional crossbows. Like we're seeing really top of the top Act 2 item RNG right now, and that means that we're going to see really, really fast Act threes here. So we saw some sub 120 times to kill Jamanra, which is very, very quick, around 118. I would need to look at exactly what the times were. I wasn't
Oh
writing them
damn.
down in my notebook. But this means that we can expect we're gonna have a barn burner here in Act 4. There's a chance that we see a sub 210 race win because these are
Let's
the kinds of
go.
items that would these are the types of items you get in your practice PBs, and we have 4 or 5 players with those caliber of items right now.
Yeah, the absolute opposite of what we had in the race previously. And that really does showcase you the power of focusing on that early league mechanic that wasn't available in the previous race. And I wonder at this stage too, what do you think about how a warrior would compare to a mercenary? Because we talked a little bit about how warriors kind of supposed to come out of Act 1 first over a mercenary. Is this still the case? Is this the breakpoint where warrior becomes a little bit slower? How are they doing?
So
As
what
as a baseline, of course.
So what we would expect to see typically is if a warrior were going to win the race, they would need about a 1 minute lead out of Jamanra. Mostly that's because
Okay.
it's slightly easier to save full boss cycles. We'll talk about this as we get to the Chimera, for example. There are the Supreme Seven. There are bosses that have skippable cycles. To give an example to chat, the Chimera goes up on his little stone stands, and on some builds, if you have high enough tooltip DPS, you'll be able to kill the Chimera before he goes on the stone stand. So if you want to see Angormis, if you're an Angormis fan, if you want to see Angormis catch up to these mercenary players, that he's about a minute and 15 seconds behind at the moment, what you'll want to see is him use his superior physical damage to get early stuns off, in
Monkey.
particular on Chimera as well as on Viper in Act 3. Those would each save approximately 30 seconds, and that would be the place for Angormis to catch up, and then it's any man's race in Act 4 if Angormis can pull both of those off.
Clean stunts coming out from Guy That Dies. This monkey still a scary opponent, but Guy That Dies will make quick work of it. Goes for some looting. The construct hammer is not going to be useful, but obviously he has to wait for that skill book drop. That's going to allow him to fully min-max his build and really get to those incredibly important skill breakpoints. And Gormis kills his monkey while Julio and Li Donglin now finding Jamanra. Jiluo with the consistency of that bone zone, and then we've got Li Nonglin on the Druid. Once again, you might be seeing grenades, but this is in fact a Druid, and the output is good. We talked about the crazy crossbow that he's got, but Druid just doesn't have nearly, seemingly at least, as much access to damage nodes the way that a mercenary would. So the damage is still looking solid, but we're beginning to see the cracks in this approach.
Yeah, and taking a look at Whole New Society's crossbow, he's in first position at the moment. He has a very good crossbow. It's not quite on the level of the other ones. It's 44% increased physical damage, a very good roll of flat fizz, close to the best possible roll, and then 2 to 23 lightning. So a lower tier on both the IPD and the lightning compared to what Guy That Dies has. But he does have +2 all projectile levels, as well as, and I can't believe that this is happening in a race, as well as a Blackheart Iron Ring, which, if you're unfamiliar, is just a
Oh.
10% more damage multiplier. It intimidates enemies on hit. So as we see, Whole New Society, who I believe was currently first player to enter Infested Barrens, Whole New Society is going to be in a very, very good position here. We might want to get him on the screen here.
Yeah, and that's a ring that doesn't come with the sort of risks that the Ming's ring comes with that we saw Angormas desperately use last week because yeah, it doesn't have that sort of damage reduction or HP reduction. So a lot more HP for Angormas, almost 800 now compared to the 400 that he had towards the end of Act 3 in last week. Definitely feeling much better about this race. But I do wonder, can he keep up? Can he push this warrior to the next level to maintain his lead? Again, this is a demi race. People are racing within their class, but the prestige of being first overall definitely something that I think a lot of these players want to take with them as sure, we still have one more race this season, but you know, after this, we've got the qualifiers for Exile coming up, so you need that confidence.
Whole New Society is making decisions that only Whole New Society would make. If you take a look at
Okay.
his support gems, he's everyone sockets multi-shot to an elemental armament 2. Those are objectively correct support gems that you need to have. The third support gem is a matter of taste. Some people use elemental focus, some people use concentrated area. Whole New Society has gone for short fuse, which is a quality of life support, not a damage support. He's either feeling himself or doing a support gem swap on bosses, because that's an insane decision. Only Whole New Society would ever do that.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder if that's going to be an approach that's going to pay off for him here. He has been doing his own thing, and we've been seeing that a lot. We're talking a lot about how these players are collaborating with each other. You know, obviously they're competing, but you know, you still want to do the best as you can as a community in PoE2. But it does seem like some players are still withholding some of the information that they have for themselves just to get that little bit of an edge. Like, sure, I'll tell you my strategy, but only like 90% of it.
If he's not support gem swapping, I'm just going to go ahead and put out there that I think that if he's not support gem swapping, and right now I don't see a copy of
Okay.
concentrated area in his inventory. He has one
Say
on flash grenade. If he's not support gem swapping, this is a
do
mistake.
it.
This is a crazy decision. This is wrong. You shouldn't do this.
He's a madman.
This guy's unhinged. He's also going at level 28. Chat was asking me, oh, Whole New Society is a lower level. He's going at 28. Guy's going at 31. So Whole New Society needs to definitely avenge the Mermaid fight that he had last week, which took him, I can't remember whether it was 5 or 6 attempts, but he lost enormous time in Act 4 going for exactly the same strategy. So he must have put in boss practice in Act 4 in order to be this confident in doing this with a very unorthodox support gem set. Like this, I cannot. This wouldn't even occur to me as a support gem to evaluate to put into the skill. Like, this is a nuts decision from Whole New Society. Similarly,
Wonder
to
can
catch you guys up on the top 3 of the race ladder right now, Whole New Society 1 minute and 9 seconds ahead of Angormas into Chimeral Wetlands. Guy That Dies 1 minute and 32 seconds and falling into Chimeral Wetlands as he continues to take XP and Whole New Society opens up a lead. Because
I
he's going at a
wonder
lower level and Guy That Dies is taking more XP. This is crazy.
can we really not think of a single upside for the short fuse? It's the faster explode of the grenaders, right?
Sure, sure. No, it's a quality of life support. That's what I mean. This is the thing that you put in your planner when someone's asking you, "Hey, I'm playing the game for the first time," and you expect them to want the quality of life. This is not a speed run tech support gem. That you
I mean, maybe it has something to do with like boss positioning. Surely there's something to it. Listen, I believe in my
listen.
boy over here.
Whole New Society is deliberately sacrificing 30% tooltip damage on an
It's a big
already
number.
underleveled strat. This is crazy. He's ahead
Right.
of everyone right now because he's underleveled, but we'll see whether or not he does this. He does have one extra support gem in his inventory, and he does
But
have
the
another
thing
support gem
though,
guaranteed to him from killing Viper. So it's possible that we'll see a support gem swap, and this is just while he's still clearing zones and needs to be able to get through Motlin waterways. Having the
right.
shorter detonations means that it's easier to clear mobs. That's why I've always given the caveat. If he's not support gem swapping for bossing once he gets to, say, Drowned City onward or Viper onward, then this is a crazy decision. If it's just a quality of life thing in order to get faster zone clears while he's in these zones where mobs will overwhelm him, like in Motlin Waterways as we're seeing, then this is a completely normal decision. This is fine. I've just never seen anyone do it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it is a little bit reminiscent of maybe some of the approaches that we've seen from mercenaries in general, where they have the shield swap and they're just using a shield swap to get through zones a little bit safely. Instead, he opts to go for something like this. I'm not quite sure yet, but I mean, that being said, as much as we're focusing on this decision over here, it's working out for him, right? Whole New Society is
Yeah.
currently in the lead.
Yeah. And because of that Blackheart, his tooltip damage is really totally fine right now, including the fact that he's missing a support gem. His tooltip is 1478. Once he puts in another 30% more damage, whether that's concentrated area or elemental focus, or there are a number of other options for him as well. He will probably have a tooltip close to that 2000 mark that we'd like to see. And that Blackheart giving a sneaky plus 10% more on top of that in order to reach that 2000 number is what I mean. So he has completely fine tooltip damage. It's just a matter of whether or not he's able to hold out at this lower level. I'll take a look at his defensive items. I did note that he was doing slightly better on resistances than the other mercenaries. Like, for example, Guy That Dies had some negative resistances, whereas the floor of Whole New Society's resistances is that he has 20 fire, 25 cold, and 46 lightning. So he's doing much better on res than the other players. Another thing that he could be doing as a backup strat that was discussed among some racers after last week was that if you go and kill the blind beast in the Isle of Kin, you get a blank greater rune, and that helps to push your damage floor up for these very underleveled things. It takes a couple of seconds to kill the enemy as well as to go to town and retrieve the greater rune. But you lose about a minute and you can get 1 to 30 lightning or equivalent amounts of fire or cold, and those can be very significant. So there's a chance that he does something like that in order to shore up his damage floor in Act 4.
And once again, bringing it back to Whole New Society, isn't this a little bit unusual too that we're seeing from him? He is killing quite a lot of mobs. He is only level 29 as he is going for the unorthodox YOLO strategy. He's killing a lot of mobs, but he's not getting a whole lot of XP. He doesn't have the shield swap where he could potentially be just like leaping over a lot of mobs instead of killing all of them. I really wonder, is he just trying to get more items? Because sure, he's first, but we're going to be seeing some waterways from some of our other players very soon as Guided Dies is entering it now. And from what I remember, at least, these don't seem noticeably faster if you're just using Leap Slam to get through them.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm looking at his tree. He has a bit of an interesting tree at the moment. Whole New Society, of all of the top mercenary players, tends to favor a movement swap that favors attack speed and movement speed over defense. So he maybe just doesn't have the armor or stun threshold to tank through these Motlin Waterways levers, and he's just killing mobs in order to be able to do that. Whole New Society does not do the famous Rise QT skip, though. He opens his portal back to town
Holy.
after pulling the lever. How do you feel about that, Rise? He's not honoring you by doing your famous speedrun skip.
Listen, I need a clarification on this. The first time that I heard this was coming from Ziggy, okay?
Uh-huh,
And
uh-huh,
I thought
uh-huh.
that it was a meme skip, so I made fun of it. And now everybody thinks that I'm the one hyping it up. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty hype, you know? A whole last second, that can go a long way in a speed run, but I do not approve of the Rise QT skip,
We're just
okay?
venerating our beloved casters by naming things after them. We just want to make sure you get your flowers too on race day. You know, there's no
Okay,
crimson
okay.
skip. There's no crimson anything in the game. I joke
I
sometimes that
mean,
crimson
listen,
amulets are named after me, but I don't
I'm too
have
old.
a whole
I'm
speedrun strategy named the Rise QT skip.
I'm too old to get any strategies after me, but you're still young. You can still get your name skips and all of that stuff. But going back into the race a little bit, it is kind of interesting, right? Because guy that dies is level. What level is he? Is he 31 already? And you can see that he's getting substantially more
Yeah, he has
XP
more than
from
need
killing the
equipped.
monsters in the zone compared to Whole New Society. So sure, Whole New Society seemingly staying in front, but guy that dies, it does seem like he's inching forward, right? He's getting closer. While Angormus also in the waterways is a tricky zone, and Juluo fell behind a little bit now already. Not
So
really
we
able to catch back up the way that he was in the previous act.
You know how conventional sports fans might have ball knowledge? PoE2 speedrunners
The
have
what?
vol knowledge. PoE2 speedrunners
Okay,
have vol knowledge, and I want to drop some elite vol knowledge on your head right here. We just went through
let's
Drown
go.
City with Whole New Society, and he had what is called a 6-3 layout, which is the fastest possible Drown City layout. 6 and 3 are the tile set distances between the entrance and the first bridge, 6 tiles, and then the distance from the bridge to the little boss arena, 3 tiles. And when it's 6-3, the exit is always on the right, and that is the shortest possible configuration for Drown City to have. We're going to see, like I said, this people are having insane item RNG, people are going at these very aggressive low-level strategies, and now we're seeing consistently very good layout RNG as well. This is one of the fastest races that we're going to have. In previous race cycles, race 3 has always been faster than race 2. It's not even clear to me how it would be possible to get a faster RNG seed than people are having today, both on layouts and on item RNG. This is a completely crazy race. We have 5 players with obscene weapons doing crazy low level strategies. We have the fastest Drown City. The difference between the fastest and slowest Drown City can be as much as a minute and 10 seconds, and we just got the fastest one. So we're going to see really, really fast split times. We're bracing ourselves for a sub 210 race win, which is nuts.
The Queen of Filth, now approached by Whole New Society. This baby eater tends to put up a big fight, but he pulls her over nicely. Not standing in the temporal chains is going to allow him to melee it up. And boom, those are some giant gas grenades coming out. While she is stunned, her HP will reach 0. Angorb going for the Rice QT skip. Oh my god, that's gonna be
Oh my
great.
god, the Rise
Oh!
QT skip! Chat, can we span some W's for the Rise QT skip?
Y'all
W
relax.
Rise QT skip.
I wanted to sneak that in real quick. Come on. Don't bring too much attention to it.
No.
Night
We've
that
got
dies.
dozens of W's in the chat. You're getting your flowers, Rise. Take a bow.
Hell yeah. I don't even know what that means, brother. I'm 60 years old. W? What? First time I'm
W
hearing
for
about
Wumbo,
that.
of course.
Ah, I see. Jillo.
Whole New Society.
Let's
I
see.
mean, maybe I'll have egg on my face after this because Whole New Society, despite having a support gem available and no longer needing to clear mobs in order to get through zones safely, continues to have short fuse on all of these support gems, and he has a support gem in his inventory that he could cut for any of the conventional damage supports and just hasn't. So again, maybe I'll just look like a clown after this, which would be
Well, I mean,
frankly great. I'll get clipped. I'll be on Exiled again. It'll be beautiful.
he hasn't really fought any bosses though, right? So as long as he's got enough damage to one-shot the mobs, why would you really, care about killing the mobs twice over? Now we've got a boss fight. Let's see. Is he going to mess around with his inventory? Whole New Society? He's tanking it. I mean, this boss moves around a lot too, though, right? He's got that animation moving thing where the less
He
HP
used
he's got, the more times he's gonna be dashing around. So maybe short fuse, pretty good here, no?
Yeah, against these more mobile bosses like Kitsuli and Viper, it definitely has some upside. Typically, players bait particular positions in order to not need short fuse, but Whole New Society may have just found it more consistent. I'm going to talk to him after this. I'm very excited.
Fuse damage is pretty good.
There's potential for like an after race party chat that I would love to have with people, and this is one of the questions
Oh,
we have to ask of like why short fuse would be the option there to catch people up on the race standings. We just full screened Whole New Society there for that boss fight, but Whole New Society opened up the Motorways entrance at 1 hour 29 and 8 seconds, which is nuts. Sub 130 is crazy. Angormus was plus 2 minutes 55, and Guy was plus 3 minutes and 11 seconds. So he's opened up about a 3-minute gap to the field. I'll be very curious for the Utsal entry times as well, because we're going to see really, really dense and fast things. We had a very fast seed for Drowned City. Whole New Society very fortunately won what is a pure 50-50 gamble on finding the Queen of Filth in the first zone. Excuse me, I think he lost the gamble on finding Queen of Filth in the first zone, so he's going to lose about 40 seconds to the field there, which is the rank 1 penalty. He had a clean Temple of Kopek there as well, so we should see an effective gap of between 2 and 2.5 minutes to Utsal if everyone else is equal. But if people start saving boss cycles that Whole New Society is losing out on by being a lower level, people are going to be able to catch up to this. This is a very surprising race. I thought that Guide That Dies with that crossbow would be going for a level 28 strategy, or even a level 31 strategy, and that does not seem to have been the case. And now it's Whole New Society's race to lose. A 3-minute gap at this part of the race without a death is pretty significant. Oh my gosh, Whole New Society drops very low. Oh, goodness gracious.
He almost died
Oh
there.
my
Doesn't go
gosh.
for the checkpoint though, so still remaining in control.
Speaking of people who
Nicely
need
done.
who need their flowers, shout out to Sarge. Sarge 2, a former PoE2 racer who's now
Who?
retired. Sarge, Sarge.
I'd never heard about that
I
guy.
don't know if there are any 7TV emotes that are going to go off in the
Nah.
Twitch chat right now, but there's a way that Sarge leap slammed that I personally learned a lot from in O.2. As you leap slam through Utsal, especially in those lower level runs when it was an Act 3 race, you could easily get frozen or stunned by the mobs in Utsal. And so you would leap slam straight, and then as you land, you dodge roll at a diagonal angle, 45 degrees to the side. And so in those situations like Whole New Society was just in, the way that you escape is by, as you land, you change the direction you're moving and dodge roll to bait projectiles on where you're going to land, and then move obliquely to dodge them. And Whole New Society had particularly clean movement there. On these underleveled strategies, small optimizations to your leap slam tech like that, where
Love
you
that.
dodge roll efficiently, really, really matter. Will he get the stun off on Viper? He does. Oh my god, he has a chance at a face skip. Please,
Nice.
please, 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 Whole New Society, you got to do it to him. Nope,
You're
Arakelly's
jinxing him so bad,
Oh
it's
my god,
over.
we had hope. We had hope that Whole New Society was going to be able to get a clean Viper there. I'm just saying. I'm just going to put it out there that if you had an extra damage support, it'd be a little bit easier to get through that phase.
True.
I'm just
That is
saying.
true. I mean, but maybe then, he doesn't hit and then he's missing out on not just 30%, but 100% of his damage. I don't know. The damage still was pretty sufficient. Sure, he had the extra phase, but in the last week's race, especially from Angormus, who granted had an absolutely horrific shield, which again is his main source of damage. We've seen even two of the big phases, right? So just one, maybe it's going to be enough for Whole New Society getting chilled. Hopefully not getting frozen anytime soon over here. And yeah, he's going for those leap slams, big skips. He's trying to stay alive as much as possible. And I've been paying attention to Julo and the way that he's been playing this. And I gotta say, at least for Maudlin Waterways, he didn't have quite the face first approach the way that a lot of other players do. He had to remain a little bit more defensive in his playstyle. And unfortunately, that does mean that it is tricky for him to continue to catch up despite his insane damage output. Angarma's dropping low, but staying alive. He's got a nice potion rolling there, something that our players always have to be paying attention to. And Guy That Dies takes down the boss. I did see one set of grenades miss, okay? That's all I'm going to say. I don't think it was enough to justify losing 30% for Whole New Society, but still, it can happen. That being said, Whole New Society approaching Doriani. He's close now.
To give you guys a quick update on the top 3 on the ladder right now, so far it appears to be Whole New Society and Gormus and Guy That Dies holding steady in those top 3 positions. Whole New Society actually had a very fast Apex of Filth. He entered Apex, and a minute 48 seconds later, Queen of Filth was dead. However, Guy That Dies, who entered 3 minutes and 19 seconds behind Whole New Society, took about a full minute longer than that, and Angormus was somewhere in the middle, about 30 seconds time deficit. So Whole New Society is actually killing these bosses faster than both Angormus and Guy That Dies were, and that's a bit unusual to see a level 28 strategy. And I just can't get past this support gem choice. This is Like, you're killing bosses faster with a
Kiom.
worse support gem configuration. I don't understand what's happening. I don't.
As we switch over to Kiom, he has to unfortunately go for the checkpoint. As yeah, he drops really low, gets into a nasty spot. You can still get blocked in by enemies, and we would hate to see. I would hate to see anybody die to one of those drowning bubbles. Surely that's not gonna happen. That would be
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah. Come on, it would be really bad if the butt lasers
Oh
from Doriani
no.
killed two different players. Oh, chat, definitely don't pipe butt lasers from Doriani into the Twitch chat. You gotta help the players.
For sure. We haven't seen really a whole lot of wait, we've not had a rip in this race. This is
I don't think we've had
absurd,
a.
no?
I don't think we've had a player on screen rip the entire time, which is great.
It's
Yeah, production
crazy.
confirming they also. You guys haven't seen that.
I mean, at this stage of the race last week, I think we've had probably like 20. Not to mention that I think Whole New Society died like 4 times even leading up to the last boss. It was pretty ridiculous. He would keep getting in the lead and then he would die and then we would have to switch over to another player. Ruthlessly too, I gotta say. Production is really good at that stuff. But right now, Whole New Society is in the lead. Is he drawing power from this position, from this rank 1 spot? Sometimes it's a lot of pressure that really gets to our players and they crumble and fall apart. But no, so far, Whole New Society, he's comfortable in rank 1. He wants to keep it. Phase 2 of Doriani beginning now. The Bud Lasers will be coming out. Will Whole New Society's lackluster defenses and potentially
He
lackluster
has.
damage too when we go back to the skill gem, will it be enough here?
Yeah, I do want to point out he has some spirit on his chest, and he's using the attrition gem, which is a bit of a damage upgrade. The other thing is that the butt
Nice.
lasers are unlikely to kill Whole New Society in particular, who has really good lightning resistance for this point in the race at 46%. So he should be totally fine and safe through Doriani in
A
particular.
stun. Wow. Huge. It is
Yeah,
very
he
difficult
has.
to stun this boss here.
Yeah, I'll be
Is
very
that
curious.
does he is it because
Mhm.
his damage is low he actually managed to stun the boss, or there's the bud laser but Doriani's dead?
Yeah. Um,
Gorm is
yeah,
beginning his Viper fight. Let's see what kind of output he's got. We've been focusing a lot on these crossbow players, but on Gormis, he's still here, the rock of the Path of Exile 2 racing community. And Mamma Mia, this is some crazy deeps. Much better than last week's, and
yeah,
really much better than the crossbows. He's gonna skip the invulnerability phase.
yep.
Viper's dead.
Yeah, that's the kind of item RNG you're looking for on Angormus. That phase skip will do a big deal to help him out. Production letting me know that Whole New Society killed Viper before anyone else entered that zone. Guy entered with a deficit of 3 minutes 50, and Angormus entered with a deficit of 4 minutes 21. So when you consider that invulnerability phase skip, Angormus likely to have made up about 30 seconds in that zone. He will probably need either a big map misread or particularly bad bossing execution from Whole New Society in order to have a chance of catching up. But it's still an open-ended race, but right now it's once again Whole New Society's race to lose, putting a lot of psychological pressure on other players by opening up all these things. You see name and lights over and over and over and
Right.
over again for the identifiable name of Gfugabagafababa that we always see the keyboard spam chosen as the name by Whole New Society. So you
He's
know it's Whole New
consistent in
Society in
that, yeah.
first, and you know that Whole New Society is in these early zones here. He goes through
But that's
Isle
the
of
thing
Tin.
too, though, right? Because he is a player that goes for these semi-YOLO strategies. So the other players, sure, they see him in first, but in a way, he's on a timer, right? It's just a matter of like his character is weaker, and at this stage, the other players aren't XPing, and they've got better characters. Can Whole New Society not just reach, but also kill the final boss? Can he
Yeah.
get through Benedictus, especially safely? Or will the other players use his death potentially as an opportunity to catch up? It is his race to lose, but he has to really perform here. He has to execute because one little mistake that another player, wouldn't necessarily die from, Whole New Society will absolutely perish. So huge
Yeah.
stuff for him. I do wonder if it's a motivation for the other players, if they are thinking, it's not a big deal. Sure, he's rank 1, but it's Whole New Society. He can't win.
I mean, wait, what? I'm sorry.
What
He
the
has
who?
it. Sorry, I'm looking at the layout that he's getting in Volcanic Warrens. He got a slow layout in Volcanic Warrens. Everyone, of course, has the same seeds. It's a fixed seed environment. But just as I'm looking for, as someone who's a fan of fast times, I'm always hoping to see the short layouts here. He's going to have an anti-clockwise spiral, which is the slowest of the four layouts here. But he's read it correctly very early on in the zone and won't lose any time to the layout. So I don't expect players to catch up to him there. That said, he oh no, Whole New Society is going to do a backup strat for his lower damage. This is really interesting. Whole New Society
Oh,
has gone down all the way to the 6 o'clock end of this anti-clockwise spiral. So in Volcanic Warrens, there is a shrine that spawns in a fixed position. This is additional burden of layout memorization. At first I thought he was taking a wrong turn. Why isn't he beelining the boss? What he was doing is recovering the checkpoint next to this shrine. It turns out to be a damaging shrine. It's a cold damage shrine. And now what he's going to do is walk up to Krutog, the boss of this zone, and then from there he is going to and he gets knocked down. We're fine. And now he's going to be able to checkpoint back, grab that shrine, and have an additional 30% gain as cold from that shrine, as well as freeze buildup. So he should be able to do this boss totally safely. Krutog does primarily poison damage and lightning damage, and right now his lightning resistance remains pretty strong for this point in the run. He has 677 HP on his primary swap, which is pretty good for a mercenary at this point in the run. So that's going to be a difference that we expect to see between him and some other people here. And Gormus, however, is on pace for a 150 or a 150 and 30 seconds Doriani, which is very, very fast. So having a full 2-zone deficit despite a very, very fast Act 3 time is not typical here. Yeah, 150-20, which is faster than the race was last week.
yup.
So Angormus is multiple minutes behind Whole New Society. It maybe
Oh,
short
Angorma's
fuses.
checking the
Maybe
ladder.
short fuses the tech. Maybe short fuses the tech. I don't understand.
We're all learning new things here, and Garmus checks the ladder, wants to hopefully regain some confidence from that. Everybody's got each other on their friends list, and you can track the other players easily this way, as the slash ladder is just not effective enough. There's plenty of players over leveling who are just trying to finish the race and not necessarily get in first. And yeah, the shrine strategy, it's interesting that you can guarantee it, right? Because I've seen this make a big difference for Benedictus, as his zone is a layout that's got a bunch of shrines in it, and some players would choose to go back to that checkpoint, get a shrine, and some players would choose not to, and sometimes it ended up costing them a cheeky rip, and it also, could just make the difference between you living or dying. So it's super cool to see that you can utilize this in another zone 100% effectively like this, as Whole New Society continuing to progress. Again, he's on a timer, but man, if he never gets caught up to his potentially lackluster single target damage, doesn't seem to be making enough of a difference for the second, third, and fourth rank player to get
Yeah,
any closer. Guillaume's
now,
dead to
yeah,
Viper.
Keom died to Viper. So we're gonna swap him out and get Guy That Dies back on the screen. Right now, it's
Holy
a three and a
ruthless.
half minute lead
Get him
for
out of
Whole New
here.
Society against Guy That Dies in second
We don't
position,
watch
and Gormus
losers.
4 minutes and 24 seconds behind. So Whole New
Just
Society
kidding. We're
first,
going to go back to Guillaume.
Guy That Dies 3.5 behind, and Gormus 4.5 behind. That said, Guy That Dies. So, like I've said many times, there's this Discord. It's a public Discord. Anyone can join. It's called the Campaign Codex. It was put together by a couple of different people, but there was a set of notes that was published about the solution to Fakapanu, and that set of notes was published by a runner who did very well in seasons 1 and 2, Lundberger, who hasn't participated in
Mm.
recent races. But the first step in Lundberger's solution to Fakapanu is to look at the two walls of the first place you enter in Fakapanu Island, and the one that doesn't have the checkpoint you hug until you see one of various tells that tells you which layout you're in. And Whole New Society didn't do that. So either he has a completely different solution than every runner I know, or he doesn't know the solution. Given the way that he's looking around at key tells, it looks to me like Whole New Society maybe hasn't yet identified what layout that he's in, because he hasn't pathed in
Guy?
a way
Okay.
that's at all conventional for top speedrunners. That said, it looks like he's found the exit potentially. So he must have a different solution. He's either gotten very lucky or he has a completely different solution algorithm for this zone than any other top runner does. which is
He
fascinating.
seems to be doing things different than everybody else. He's got his own play style, and you know what? It is important that you learn from your opponents. It's important that you learn from your friends, but I do find that a lot of the times the players who come up with the strategies tend to have really good results, and we're definitely seeing something from Whole New Society. We haven't quite identified it yet to be the best, but as far as potentially this race result, it's definitely been incredibly effective so far, as long as he stays alive. If he has enough gear, does he have enough resistances? Will he die to Benedictus, the final boss? We've seen him claim many lives, but another key boss is coming up now that some of our players we've seen in past events utilize some really crazy strategies, right?
Yeah, so Whole New Society closing in on the Mermaid. I just want to give some quick shout outs. Angorm is currently progressing cleanly through Volcanic Warrens, had a correct zone read. You can see that spiral if you look at Angormus in the top left of your screen. Similarly, Giluo has a clean kill against Doriani, and Guy That Dies making his way through Fakapanu, trying to catch up here. Whole New Society has a little bit of a slow zone read in order to find um, the Mermaid here. If we full screen Whole New Society during this fight, you'll see he positions against this round stone at around 4 o'clock on the perimeter of the zone. Now he's going to bait these water spires in particular positions, and he puts his heel against this round stone. He wants to be able to survive here, and if he can keep a very precise position, he should be able to prevent the Mermaid from leaving the arena, exactly like this. So he must have practiced this in the offset. When he had multiple fights against Mermaid last cycle, what he was doing was standing too early and baiting the water spires in a wrong position. This time he had excellent combat engagement here, and he gets a correct position there, drops a unique Roahide coat, and gets out of the zone very cleanly. A nearly perfect Mermaid fight there. That setup was first discovered by Guy That Dies and quickly shared both among racers and with GGG. We report all bugs and exploits.
Currently crying in the Discord. We should really fix that. No, you shouldn't. This is
I
the
have
sort
a
of stuff
very
we
strong
live for.
opinion. I have an opinion that if it's not breaking the league economy and it doesn't cause server stability and it's skill based and it only affects one boss, it's a cool race strat. Now, other racers disagree with me, and GGG can disagree with me. But listen,
Hell yeah.
let me
Say
have a
it.
cup of coffee with the producers. I will convince them that this is a skill-based
Preach.
strat that doesn't break the economy and doesn't cause server instability, and it's the kind of thing that's cool in speedrunning. It should stay in the game.
Preach, brother. Hit him. What are you going to do? Cut off our microphones?
Yeah,
We can say whatever we want.
Hey, listen, I mean, I'm not the person who gets to make that decision. And when this exploit was reported to GGG, the alleged opinion of the dev that was reached out to was that it should go out of the game. But I'm happy to have the conversation. It's skill based. It doesn't break the economy or the server. It's cool. Leave it in. Leave it in. Leave it in. I say leave it in. Come on, Twitch chat. We want cool tech to stay in the races.
I mean, there is a lot of stuff like this in PoE1 that still exists that has never really been changed, and the people still abuse it. I even see regular campaign runners abuse it, not just speedrunners. It's the sort of things that you learn. It is, it is a little bit extreme in this case. I do have to say, as the boss, kind of decides to go AFK there for a little bit. But as a speedrunner myself, I do appreciate these sort of things, and personally, yeah, keep it. If you remove it, you're evil. That's all I'm saying. Whole New Society in the prison now. He is doing his progression. We're going to see another quite dangerous fight. And we could have maybe also seen, because there's a lot more emphasis at this stage of the game on resistances, right? So you tend to switch out your gear. This is something that you were already preparing from Act 1, knowing that some of these bosses and some of these mobs on the way to those bosses deal a particular type of damage. So I think there's some more emphasis on cold resistance in this zone.
Yes, there are a lot of things that can kill you in this zone. The boss fight itself is particularly safe. The positioning against the prisoner is pretty easy to figure out. Also, Whole New Society has made a clean and correct read on the abandoned prison using a very conventional pathfinding algorithm. There are only 4 base layouts in prison. It's one of the easiest zones to learn. It's based on the position of a particular tile that has one of those levers in it. This particular one is called late parallel because the gate can either be perpendicular or parallel to the ship you come in on, and it can be close to it or far from it. So early or late, parallel or perpendicular, those are the 4 setups here, and he identified it cleanly. Solitary Confinement, by the way, has the easiest map read of any zone in the entire game. It's the only zone that I think should be reworked to make it more complicated, because the strategy is find the exterior wall and then it's a completely
It's
straight
too
line.
late for you. It's you can't like for oh yeah, they should make it more difficult, but keep the boss fight by the it's too late for you. Listen, all I'm gonna mention is that you can jump through the crates, which is pretty cool. You see, there's no pass there. Boom, he jumps through it. It's that easy. It's like the books in library in PoE1. Super cool stuff. But about the
Yeah,
zone, please continue. I
yeah,
mean,
no,
I interrupted
I'm
you, but
just I'm looking through this. Like I mentioned, oh, there are 8 different red veils. There are 8 different drowned cities. There are 4 different abandoned prisons. I'm sure that there are multiple solitary confinements, but the difference between the fastest and the slowest
guy
one,
is
in the case
dead.
of Drowned City, to what? To the
He died.
whirling things, to the whirling coffin
Not
things. I
enough
was
cold
looking at the wrong
res.
thing.
It's over for him.
Uh, Seam Stranger in chat asks, where can we watch Giluo stream or learn about his strat? The witch trees, Giluo gave them to me, and I have posted the witch trees in the campaign codex Discord. And Guy That Dies has a guide published as well, based on translating that speedrun strat to become a league strat. So if you're curious about that, you can join the campaign codex Discord and look for leveling builds there, or you can hit up Guy That Dies and ask for that if you're an English language speaker. Giluo speaks good English, but streams primarily on a Chinese language platform, so you would need to be a Chinese language speaker to get those notes from him. To go back to
And
talking
gives
about the zones, though, the difference between the best and worst drowned city is like a minute. The difference between the best and worst solitary confinement is 6 seconds. So it doesn't really matter. Like, you get the best or the worst one. Guy That Dies dies, which means that it's now a 2-man race between Angormus and Whole New Society. Whole New Society had to reset there because he got caught in an awkward corner but didn't die, so he had about 40 seconds of time loss, which gives Angormus some hope, especially if Whole New Society has a death against any boss. The one to look for would be Phase 2 or Phase 3 Tavakai for his current strategy. I'm checking these support gems again. He still has short fuse on everything.
we have seen people die on phase 1 a lot too. Typically, it tends to be them kind of getting pushed up against the wall a little bit too much by some AoE abilities and then eating the giant slam. And yeah, that one will take down just about anybody. Although, I gotta say, if we can get an update on how much HP... Ooh, and Gorma's going for the reset, stays alive. And no skip for Jiluo, goes for the stun. He's just gonna kill it. Just like that. He doesn't even have to do the strategy. He's just got enough damage.
That's completely crazy.
That's absurd.
One of the main narratives from last week that I was really interested in is that we've seen this contingent of Chinese players push really high into the top 10. In O.1, we saw Zhaoji, but now we see Jiluo, and we see Jigglypuff, and we see a few other Chinese players in the top 10. So I'll be curious in the post-race ladder to digest the East versus West narrative as well. Whole New Society is doing a number of idiosyncratic. He's sacrificing a ton of damage in order to do this, which I'm surprised by. He has short fuse instead of concentrated area, which shortens your detonation time and makes more of your grenades hit, but sacrifices 30% of your damage. And then he also isn't using the rage generation tech with Ferocious Roar, so he's just running the most bare bones mercenary that we've seen.
Though.
And yeah, he's you're going to see the DPS start to fall off here. And that means that if the shrine that spawns in this map layout seed in the excavation, when he goes to fight Benedictus, if that shrine is not a damaging type shrine, he could be in pretty significant trouble here. He has 677 HP on his primary swap and 46? No, 36% cold, lightning resistance, which means that the main lightning beam from the post pillar shatter attack animation of Benedictus is more than enough to one-shot him. So if he doesn't get a damaging shrine, there's a chance that if he just gets a bad attack cycle from Benedictus, he just straight up dies. There's just nothing he can do. So we'll have to see. He has an extra support gem in his inventory. Right? It's exceptionally hard to dodge. It's
it is hard.
It's just a hard boss.
I face tank that shit every time. I'll be honest. I can't dodge anything in that fight. It is ridiculous. To be fair, though, you do need the extra preparation for the interludes as well. So there's that. But yeah, Whole New Society. Now, I wonder if he is going to go for the additional Exalted Orbs. It's seemingly he's got everything that he needs, right? Would he go for the bells to pick up the Exalted Orbs that are guaranteed in this zone?
His helm has multiple open suffixes and is a high enough eye level to run big chunks of resistance. Similarly, his amulet. Similarly, his boots. So he has a bunch of open modifiers. There's no way
he's got a lot.
Go for this Exalted Ball. One thing that I want to point out for Twitch chat just regarding league start strategies, a lot of people complain, oh, in Erastus, if I die, I get sent all the way back to this church and the bubble. See the mob that's holding Whole New Society into this bubble right now? If you kill that mob, that advances the quest state. And so you'll see if he kills this, if later on he needs the checkpoint reset and so forth, he won't get sent back to the bubble. That's a conservative decision, the first conservative decision we've seen made from Whole New Society, who perhaps has realized that guy that dies has died. And so now he knows that he has a 4-minute lead over Angormus, and he's going to be able to continue doing this. So he's now going to play a little bit more safely, perhaps. If you kill that mob and then you need to checkpoint reset, you go to the nearest checkpoint. If you don't kill that mob, and you need to checkpoint reset, you get sent all the way back to the bubble, which is, depending on where it happens, a 1 or 2
It's
minute time
interesting.
loss.
I wonder how he's keeping up. I mean, he could literally be checking their streams and whatnot, right? Because we do see this from a lot of players. They're typing /ladder, they're checking their friends list, but none of that happening for a Whole New Society. So has he figured out that Angormus is his only realistic competition at this stage of the game, and he's basing his playstyle off of the fact how Angormus is keeping up with his progression as he is now fighting the prisoner and a much more stationary, a cleaner, seemingly in control fight for Angormus compared to Whole New Society. Sure, he gets chunked, he drops low, but again, as long as his 800 HP is above 1, he's chilling.
I'm very excited to see this Torvian fight on Whole New Society. I know that we have a lot of players in a lot of interesting positions, but seeing a Whole New Society at this low level with this low DPS strat, pushing so aggressively based on zone reads and just combat prowess, Torvian is probably, other than phase 2 and 3 Tavakai, the hardest boss fight in the game. And this is one of the places where I can imagine that Short Fuse has its highest utility. Torvian is highly mobile, has a high HP pool, and can get those buffs from the bleachers. So having shorter detonation times on these grenades can be really, really potent. So if we have a chance to hold screen Whole New Society, I would like to see that. If not, I will... Yeah, perfect. Thank you guys so much. You'll notice he gets these buffs from the bleachers. The one on the far right is increased defenses. The one on the far left is stun and ailment threshold. The one at the top gives him gain as extra cold as well as freeze buildup. So essentially the ones on the side make him defensively stronger, and the one on the top makes him offensively more threatening. Whole New Society with clean execution so far, able to get through all of this. He's choosing to cancel the ones that I would expect, which are the defensive ones on the sides of the bleachers here. The other thing that I should note is that he has particularly low flasks. He didn't go to level 30 to get a higher tier thing here, and so since...
Okay, nice.
And so...
I thought he was going to get chunked there.
And so we can see him needing to manage his flask charges a bit more aggressively than you might otherwise see, but so far really clean execution, keeping track of his flask charges. He has more than enough to continue through this fight, and he's hitting with these grenades really, really effectively. So I'm seeing the light. Short Fuse is the tech, boys. Log in 0.5 Short Fuse tech. Okay,
that was quick, mamma mia.
Yeah, and he's being exceptionally diligent. We've seen some top players in previous patches press those flasks a bit aggressively, and he's really waiting until he's on very, very low mana in order to be able to get the most out of those flasks. And he has what is frankly just a clean and clinical Torvian fight.
Enough.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, W's in the chat for Whole New Society. As he gets through Excavation here, the big make or break moment for anyone else to possibly catch up, unless we see a rip on Tavakai, is whether or not this shrine is an offensive shrine of any kind. A Gloom Shrine, a Tempest Shrine, any of the Fire, Meteoric Shrine, all those. If it's not a damage shrine of some kind, then Whole New Society may have a very difficult time. That said, he has pretty good lightning resistance, and it is a damage shrine. So it's Whole New Society's race to lose. The only way that Whole New Society loses this is if he dies against Tavakai. There's a chance he could die on Heart of the Tribe, but he's been going all day. I'm just saying the only way that he could possibly lose this is a death in very, very, very late. And so if you're you've got to play.
Let's see how powerful your caster curse is. I love it. This is the way
to
do it.
You sent it. I'm a Whole New Society fan, but I mean, a death in
it doesn't sound like it, my friend. Because you are casting cursing the bejesus out of this man. I mean, I'm a believer too, but let's see how this goes. You can go into the explanation for this fight.
Caster's Curse. And so now his tooltip damage, including that shrine, is 1997. So it's still 20 or 30% lower than I would expect to see at this point. And that's including the mental math of the rest of this. And Gormus should One thing that you'll notice, by the way, just to give some highlight to the warrior tech, Angormus will be pouncing onto bosses in the beginning of these fights, and that's to apply a mark. He's using the Mark of Siphoning support gem in order to be able to get Mana Leech against these bosses. We see a clean initial fight from Whole New Society, DPS a bit lower than we expect.
Angorma's dropping low, but staying alive.
Multiple buffs building up on Torvian there. He cancels the freeze, but not the stun and ailment threshold buff. Progresses to the
Man,
final phase and should be totally
you
fine.
weren't
So yeah,
kidding.
yeah,
Whole New Society made this look easy.
yeah. No, this is yeah. If you get the shrine, this is a joke. If you get the shrine,
Oh.
this fight is complete cheese on any reasonable build.
Nicely done by both of our players here. Exceptional performance from Angormus and Whole New Society. Angormus still desperately trying to keep up the race. It's close to the finish line now. And the enraged timer that Angormus is, will it be enough? Will Whole New Society have to die? If Whole New Society dies, will it even be enough to catch up for Angormus? How is his fight going to go on Benedictus? Granted, you still have to get through a lot of zones. Some of these zones are very, very dangerous. Well, a lot, two of them, right? For a Whole New
Yeah.
Society. They're pretty dangerous. We've seen
So
players die while progressing before. Actually, speaking of, by the way,
I,
look in
I'm
the
in,
top
I'm
right.
in, I am informed by Twitch chat from a trusted source. Driz, a top mercenary player who's not participating today, claims that Guy has died again. I would love to find out from production if that is true, as I keep a close eye on the top two there.
Whoa,
Um,
Julio.
and then it's and
Julio,
then it's
so much damage.
it's crazy. Torvian time lapse there. Whole New Society, a 2 minute and 4 second gap. So if we see either a very large run back, if we see Whole New Society get very low and need to do a zone reset, then that could be about a minute of time loss, and Angormus would have a chance, depending on where that happens in any given zone. But it would still
Flashbang, get
probably take a
down.
death. It would still probably take a death for Angormus to be able to catch up here. It looks like it's still Whole New Society's race to lose. I said that we might see a sub 210 today. That's obviously not going to happen. We're 210 into the race. Looks like we're more likely to get a 216 race finish, which is still very, very good, but multiple minutes off of the times that I thought were possible with more aggressive low-level strategies that we've seen people execute in practice. The Doriani kill times that we saw were very, very aggressive, and so far, Whole New Society has played a little bit conservatively with, for example, that shrine tech in Volcanic Warrens, but so far I'm not seeing a whole lot of
Look
time
at
loss here. So
Giluo. His approach is so different now. He's bouncing around, shifting out in. It's so different to what he was doing before, not going for any of those mob kills. He doesn't have a. Okay, no, he is going for the shrine for a second there. I thought that
yeah,
he's not, but there we go. Angormus finishes his Benedictus, drops quite low there towards the end, but will manage to survive. Squeezes in the head shake. I love Angormus for those little expressions. And Juluo staying a little bit at range here, but still making sure that that shrine is hitting. Goes for the big dodge. The boss is almost frozen. But the max range, this is dangerous for him, no? You
yeah,
always want to be seeing what the boss is doing, but in this case, he goes for the max range. The boss doesn't quite get frozen. The shrine falls off, but Julo stays alive. And this last final burst after the phase should hopefully be enough. No close calls for him. Scary, but still well executed by our Infernalist, who is closing in on Angormus. This is pretty clutch for everybody on the screen right now, for sure.
yeah. One thing that I want to call out there is that Angormus was making up time. He was only 2 minutes and 4 seconds behind to Torvian compared to Whole New Society, but Whole New Society had a perfectly clean Benedictus fight, and Angormus wasn't able to cross a DPS threshold and ended up getting a maze phase, which loses between 15 and 20 seconds. So we're again back down to that 2.5 minute time deficit compared to Whole New Society. Whole New Society! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! He ends up caught in the middle of a closed hut there. In that particular part of the zone, you're not supposed to go into that room, so he must have
Angormus,
felt particularly close. There. I can't
Crimson.
see what I can't see what Angormus is. Where?
Where's my Makoru? He wasn't getting the animation right because he can sometimes this bugs out. I think that's what was happening.
Uh,
No,
where
he
is
didn't
his
get it now.
Makoro? So he's going to checkpoint reset, and it should have advanced the quest flag when, yeah, return to King's March. Okay,
Yeah,
so
he's got it.
Angormus
He's got
didn't
it.
get bugged. Now we did see a late Zone reset from Whole New Society there is he got cornered by a number of Blood Boil mobs. And so with the lower level flask, especially the prefix on that flask being increased recovery rate instead of more amount recovered.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Whole New Society.
Oh my gosh, but Whole New Society,
Right.
okay,
Right in
on top
front
of
of the
checkpoint.
boss.
So we expect between the maze phase and that zone reset to be a 2-minute deficit. So if Whole New Society gets a first time Tavakai here, then he should be completely fine. That said, 670 HP, his resistances are totally fine. He has a shield equipped to be able to do raised shield. You can see it equipped on his left thing there. Man, if short fuse is the tech, I'm upset.
It might make the difference here, though, right? Because this is where he does need the damage, and Gormus, he's nearby, and yes, there is a gap between them, but it's 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's just about the gap that we were talking about in when it comes to the death penalty, right? Huge slam coming out, dodges it perfectly.
Holy Society is what? The first thing where those sorts of animations where he summons the cone shapes of Jade Spires, Holy Society is face rolling through them instead of moving off to the side, which is a very unusual way to bait that attack animation. Again, Whole New Society, an idiosyncratic iconoclast thinker, where he's approaching these fights differently than I would see any other top racer bait these attack cycles. This is a fascinating approach. I don't
Amazing
really
to
have
see.
much to say about it. A clean phase one avoids the stun right at the end, and this is on a very low tooltip DPS.
If we can just, while this is happening, can we just check out where Angormus is? Is he close? He hasn't quite started his fight yet. Okay, we can. He is close, however. We can go back to Whole New Society. This is where the cookie crumbles for so many of our players. This phase 2, how dangerous is it going to be? So far, he's fully in control. Yes, Crimson mentioned he's got some unorthodox dodges here, but it might potentially just pay off if he's got the resistances, if he's got the survivability, if he doesn't get hit. Will this YOLO low-level strategy finally work out for Whole New Society and get him not just rank 1 mercenary, but rank 1 overall? Super clean so far. Heading over soon into the first phase as I potentially caster curse him. A little bit misses out on some damage, but the short fuse comes in clutch. Boss barely doesn't manage to move out of his AoE. The mana flasks, though, they're looking scary. Will he be able to get enough damage here to actually take down this boss as a whole? The sun comes out, and that's going to be phase. His mana flask, however. Crimson,
So
can he do this?
Oh, he could definitely do this. He may need to do a little bit of unorthodox stuff in order to get through it. One thing I want to point out, he got the best possible attack cycle from Tavakai in the beginning, where Tavakai was baited into the corner and then summoned those spirals of blood spikes. Ordinarily, that animation by itself is long enough for a grenade mercenary to completely phase the boss through it, and instead, Whole New Society, on his lower DPS, had to dodge through those various other raining animations in order to get through it, so he wasn't able to get a clean phasing there. However, Angormus is just exactly behind him, entering phase 2 there, and you can see Giluo on the Infernalist here. So if Whole New Society does not clear through this phase 3 quite clearly, then we're going to see a very close race. Rise, if you want to shoutcast through this phase 3, I'm more than happy to let you do it.
This is everything for Whole New Society. He is so close. We've seen he's dead! Just like that, phase 3 claims his life. Would Angormus be able to finish
It's a two-man race between Giluo and Angormus now. They're both in phase 2 at the same time, and Giluo has better tooltip DPS. This is going to be the most exciting race finish that we've had in racing so far. Angormus getting through this with superior physical damage, going to be able to carry through all of the rest of this phase, but Giluo is going to be able to position more safely against wide AoE slams with the range damage. Angormus enters phase 3, has the boss in the preferred position against the wall here, should be able to put down the 2 shield walls and be able to get through all of this quite cleanly on the phase 3. But we see the phase 3 enter here from Giluo as well. I can't believe that for Holy Society. I can't believe this. They're going to enter within 5 seconds of each other. Oh my gosh, I simply cannot believe this. Go Giluo, go Angormus. Oh my god. I can't believe it. The Caster's Curse is real. Whole New Society steps on top of a Blood Spike, an uncharacteristic mistake in Phase 3 Tavakai. He has very clean fight execution through all of Act 3 before that, and Angormus gets the bug where you see the 2 HP bars at the top of the screen, and if Angormus can survive through this, he does have a 10-second advantage. Will Giluo's slightly superior DPS be enough to get through this here? Angormus has it all the way through here in the Solar Orb in the middle of this. He does have a gap in those Blood Spikes where he's standing right now. Should be able to dodge all the way through this and is safely through the Solar Orb. Will be able to get through this, and Angormus will be able to bring down the Tavakai all the way down. And we did! Angormus wins! Angormus wins! Oh my gosh! And Jilo right behind, going to be able to get through this in the next 10 seconds. We're going to see Jilo with his highest rank finish going to be able to finish the fight. Is he going to be able to do this? Has a slow animation there. Will be able to bring this in. Jilo only 10 seconds behind. I can't believe this. The closest race that we've ever had. Oh my god!
All this
Oh
build
my
up from
god!
Giluo, the huge damage that we kept talking about, it still was not enough to keep up with Angormus's output. The shield strategy lands, and Angormus will be rank 1. Now realizing the whole new society has in fact died, and he was competing for first overall. Amazing stuff from all of our players here. Unfortunate outcome for whole new society. His strategy took him so far, but at the end of the race, it was not far enough.
The mighty melee meaty warrior with melee combat wins once again. Angormus the goat climbs like the mountain goat that he is to the top of the mountaintop. And Angormus with his first rank 1 since season 2. It's been more than 6 months since we've seen this man at the height of the game. I can't believe that he's able to get back this. The shield wall warrior strategy, certainly among the top of the meta, but was not what I would have guessed was going to be the top of the meta when we came into this race season. And now we see Angormus with an incredibly strong defensive strategy able to do this. And we see now whole new society once again going back in, should be able to finish rank 1 mercenary if we keep an eye on where Guy That Dies is. And I'm stunned beyond words, Rise.
Insane outcome.
That's the best race finish we've had in a long time. That's the best
100%.
race finish we've ever had, period.
I agree. I fully agree. Again, we were building up towards this. We kept talking. The players are getting better. Nobody's really dying. Sure, we saw one live rip, but compared to the past races, this really was nothing. But in the end, the whole new society, once again, going for this risky strategy. This is something that has held him back in the past. And once again, he's running into the same issue. But, sure, Angormus gets rank 1 overall. A whole new society still can claim rank 1 mercenary. We are still finishing for our classes as we're going to be switching in different players. Kiom now fighting Benedictus. Lysara trying to keep up. However, I think that's the Riani zone, so quite a ways away. And we're going to be getting updates to you guys very soon. Every single one of these people are still competing for the demigods for that juicy MTX, whole new society. Definitely playing a little bit safer this time around, not doing nearly as much unorthodox dodging. Will progress to the second phase. A fight that he's already done before.
I can't
phase
believe
3
it. At
claim his
Halani
life.
Gates, when Giluo and Angormus had neither ascended, Giluo was 10 seconds ahead of Angormus, going through an entire 5-minute and 50-second time loss to ascend on a class that has vastly superior defenses in Act 3 and 4. Giluo finishes 14 seconds behind rank 1 with a 5-minute 50-second time loss to ascension. That is a completely absurd performance from Giluo. That's
And
not just the item RNG that I talked about earlier, because everyone had good item RNG today. All of our top 5 players had great crossbows, great stabs, great shields. That's a nuts performance to lose 5 minutes and 50 seconds to time loss. I would love to see Giluo on a non-ascension class. I can't believe this would be an obscene race. What a
he really
crazy
adjusted
race
his
today.
play at some point. He realized that he's really far ahead of the next witch, and he can actually go for rank 1. And you could see that he started to take risks. He went really hard, and it didn't quite get rank 1, but 14 seconds, that's something that sets him up not just nicely for the next week's race, but also for the upcoming ExileCon qualifiers. An amazing performance from Giluo. And also, I mean, yeah, we do have kind of the difference in approaches, right? With the Chinese players kind of choosing a little bit different strategies and a difference in communication between them as whole new society now gets over to the third phase. So this was the sketchy part for him. Luxian on the mercenary, still potentially threatening whole new society, right? Luxian now beginning first phase Tavakai. If whole new society dies again, he won't just lose the race overall. He might even lose the mercenary demigods.
But we can see whole new society spinning for good luck. You know, we got to spin for good luck. And now
My
we're
bad.
into phase 3. Meanwhile, Luxian, I'm taking a look at his gear. Thank you to production for getting me a link here. He did go all the way to level 33 and has a pretty good level 33 bombard crossbow, so his damage floor will be much higher. His defenses, however, pretty similar, resistances in the low teens across the board for Luxian. So Whole New Society, much lower tooltip DPS, but similar overall defense. And so Whole New Society just needs to avoid those blood spikes. He should be able to survive here. Looks like he has a large gap.
Oh, the freeze with the
Takes a
follow-up
and
slam!
he resets through this.
Wait, did he
Yeah,
actually?
now we've got
No,
a
he's
two-man
dead.
shoutcast
He's dead.
between the two of them. Whole New Society died. Oh my god! And Luxian's going to
He
take
did
rank
die.
1.
He did
If we
die.
have
This
our
is
top
unfortunate.
crossbow player not be a mercenary, that's insane. Because right now we see Luxian, top crossbow player, on the mercenary, but closely behind him, Li Donglin, and Whole New Society has now died twice against Tavakai, losing more than 5 minutes. By the way, the 2.5 minute time reset isn't the big deal. He needs to fight through 2 more phases. Each one of these is a 4+ minute time loss at this point in the race. And we see Luxian with clean execution, has that high level crossbow with
Tons of
beautiful
damage.
flat damage, with beautiful flat damage prefixes, high level fire, high level cold, mediocre flat fizz, as well as a good storm rune, not a lesser storm rune, a medium storm rune, so to speak.
This really showcases the difference in the approach, right? Like, sure, Whole New Society, he saves a lot of time progressing, but man, if in the end you don't execute, you don't manage to get through, he was so close, that gives an opportunity for a more steady approach from Luxian to come out ahead. And it's not just that they're at a similar spot. Luxian is just much more likely to survive if he gets hit by the same sort of attacks that have killed Whole New Society previously. Li Dongling, sorry, on the Druid now with those crossbows trying to get
oh my gosh,
his rank
Luxian
1.
gets hit. Luxian gets hit by one of the blood spikes. We're going to see a close
He's
split between
okay.
Luxian and Li Donglin.
Yeah, Whole New Society would have died to this, right?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Luxian going to be able to get cleanly through the phase, and Luxian will finish just barely ahead of Li Donglin. Oh my goodness gracious. What an insane set of Tavakai fights this week. And
what
Keom on the Ranger. Keom going for a very conventional position. If you look at the bottom right side of your screen, folks, Keom on this Ranger positioning against this pillar within the hut. You're going to see him in the corner here. What he's going to do is time those first couple of grenades to explode exactly when the first attack cycle comes out from Tavakai here, and this means that he now is able to manipulate consistent positions for those first 2 sets of grenades from Tavakai. Very conventional positioning here. And then as he goes out here, we're going to see more highly mobile stuff from Keom's iteration of Tavakai. Luxian, despite being rank 1 last week, finished 35 seconds faster this week, won the mercenary class, but did not win the race overall because Giluo and Angormus were simply unstoppable. Good item RNG and execution throughout from the two of them throughout the entire week. Keom cleanly through phase 1, and Li Donglin now through phase 3 will be able to bring down Tavakai on an excellent set of fights there as well. Keom in particular, I'm very interested to see his phase 3. Ranger, similar overall projectile damage amount available on tree to what you get on the mercenary, if not slightly higher, but has slightly worse nodes in terms of cooldown reduction, especially early on for those grenades to keep them cycling and clearing mobs throughout those Act 2 and 3 zones, as well as slightly worse access to those armor and stun threshold nodes. So Ranger, similar overall strategy to what you would see on a mercenary, but slightly takes a slightly longer time to get online for a very similar strategy there.
Li Donglin finishes just like that. Meanwhile, we switch over to Shka, who is on a Huntress, a class we haven't seen a whole lot of, but still utilizing the grenade approach. Interesting to see that more players have resorted to this. We've seen a lot of experimentation on different sorts of classes, and yet so many are still deeming this grenade approach to be superior to everything else, as Whole New Society once again into the second phase, trying to finish, honestly, a disappointing finish, but great show of just heart, right? He's not giving up. You see so many of these players who don't get rank 1, give up, retire their characters, log out, but not for Whole New Society. He knows that he's lost this one, but he still wants the practice. He wants the pressure. He is under a lot of it right now. Tavakai definitely fighting back, and you can see Whole New Society, he's shaken, but yet still going, persevering. Kiyo's damage, great, sure. On a technically weaker class, but nonetheless, this output is just tremendous because of those additional levels. And yeah, this steady approach, it's really showing its strength. We've seen Whole New Society's risky approach strengths the entire race, but the safety net that these additional levels provide does result in Keom potentially getting his rank 1 ranger here, as Shka is now on to the second phase as well on the Huntress. Whole New Society phase 3. Will the third one be the one finally that he needs? This is probably a fight that he's practiced literally for hundreds of hours at this stage. So unfortunate how it ends, but nonetheless. Oh, nice. Guillaume actually already managed to finish. Never mind. It's just dead, lol.
You're
Okay.
gonna have to carry us through the Whole New Society phase 3 as I look at Bunka's tree, because he's got a great plan here. I just don't understand it yet. I've got to read his
Sure.
tree for a second.
Shka through phase 2. Whole New Society now putting out a lot of damage. The fight has begun. Those pre-planted grenades doing work. There's many spikes on the ground. He's kind of in a dangerous position here. Must dodge out of that big beam. Steps away from the crystals. The explosion comes out. Doesn't get hit by the slam. Doesn't get hit by those crystals that have killed him previously. Perfect positioning. Remaining in the upper left corner allows him to continue to put out maximum damage with the AoE from the grenades. Gets frozen by the rain. Doesn't manage to get that shield quickly enough. I think this is a gap in his cold resistance. Second time that this happens now, unfortunately. We've seen this strategy for many of our players. Instead of itemizing around cold resistance for that dangerous blizzard attack, they just put up their shield. But when this ability is paired up with the big slam coming out from the boss, you simply get your defenses broken through and you die immediately as you either freeze in agony or simply get one shot by the slam. Unfortunate stuff once again for Whole New Society, with phase 3 proving to be too difficult, something that Shka does not have an issue with. The Huntress, rank 1 Demi, has been claimed. Great job by Shka. Bunka in the top left now on the Sorceress.
Yeah, I was
One
going
of
to
the
say,
final classes that hasn't finished yet.
so we have a really interesting dynamic shaping up between these two top sorceresses. So they're not at the
Okay.
absolute top of the ladder, but the top race here is very, very interesting. The meta for a long time has been to level and clear with Essence Drain Contagion, and then the best bossing spell in general, not on sorceress, but in general, is Bone Storm for a variety of reasons. It scales better, does better stun, it has interactions with support gems that matter. And however, the sorceress tree has a high amount of elemental damage, which most people think, myself included, when I've played sorceress runs, that Ember Fusillade on the sorceress tree in particular scales very well with that high amount of elemental damage. Bunka on the sorceress has a very interesting tree. He's playing Bone Storm, and the way he's doing that is by climbing all the way over to Potent Incantation and other nodes in the Druid portion of the tree, where you get high amounts of channeling damage or high amounts of spell damage by climbing over to that left side of the Druid tree. Meanwhile, Ray Queen, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, player named Letu, is playing a more traditional Ember Fusillade, but with a few quirks of its own. This tree, ordinarily what people do is they climb all the way up and they get notes like Potent Incantation, and they continue to climb all the way up to 12 o'clock to get into the fire damage cluster very at the top of the tree. However, what Ray Queen, Letu, has chosen to do instead is a slightly different build for their Ember Fusillade, and I'm curious about why. Partially because I think the justification here is that if they climb all the way up to the node Overexposure and then way out left to the node All Natural, they get a similar amount of elemental damage that they would have if they went straight up, but better access to ES nodes like Illuminated Crown. So it may be that they didn't prefer the sort of defensive allocation that the conventional sorceress tree does, but it looks like we have a battle between a pretty traditional Ember Fusillade sorceress and a very non-traditional Bone Storm sorceress between Bunka on the Bone Storm and Letu on the Ember Fusillade on these sorceress. Both of them have really conventional support gem setups for both of those different skills. We are seeing yet again a Druid skill climb over into the sorceress tree in the case of Thunderstorm, for Bunka being used with Living Lightning in order to make shock easier on the Bone Storm setup. But this is a very interesting setup from Letu as we see going through the heart of the tribe here.
We've got Crate, the player that we saw in last week's race on the Monk. And in the top right, we haven't updated the name yet, but we have, again, another Monk. So it's going to be pretty close, hopefully, between our players here. I mean, for Bunka, it's still quite a ways away as we switch on over. And yeah, this is definitely going to be difficult for him. Letu is just noticeably ahead. Still, Bunka has to do Torvian. Again, Bunka, a very familiar name, especially for players who are keeping up with the first and the second season of the race. Whole new society back in his fight. We're keeping this man on the screen. He needs to persevere. This is a community battle at this stage. We need him to finish as Crate in the top right, looking to finish on the Monk. Again, this is a spectator bug. He's messing around with his inventory right now. He's not just standing around AFK, guys. Just keep that in mind. Letu will be the first sorceress to approach Tavakai. And let's see what kind of damage he's going to be having here.
Both of our sorceresses have pretty good stats, +2 all spell levels, decent chunk of prefix spell damage as well as gain. So pretty similar overall for those spells. It does look like Letu may have gotten theirs a little bit later than Bunka did because it's an item of a higher item level. But you can see really gorgeous damage coming out here from these Ember Fuse slots. Very potent skill, especially with those infusions. You'll see them picking up lightning infusions generated by Orb of Storms. And they get cleanly through the first portion of the fight here. 52% elemental exposure from those frost bombs. They also did an interesting thing. They took their second lesser jeweler's orb, presumably the one that you get in Sandswept Marsh, and applied it to elemental weakness in order to have additional potency there. And that's not a very common choice. I think that that's a really interesting choice. They get a huge amount of elemental exposure there, and their tooltip damage on Ember Fusillade is really, really great. So a little over 2,000 on the tooltip, so they should be doing just fine.
Holy Society dropping low, but playing it safe. Letu, the damage output, I think we're saying cleanly doesn't really sell it well enough. This is super clean, especially for a sorceress. This damage is just tremendous. You do have to get a little bit up close and personal at times, but then whenever you do have those power-ups, this damage is really freaking good. Crate still progressing as Letu is waiting for the third phase to begin. Bunka still remaining.
Now we have a ladder position race.
I believe.
Now we have a ladder position race between Whole New Society and Letu. Letu on the Sorceress. One of the classes I would say is one of the weaker in speedrunning in general, along with the Monk down at the struggling end of the spectrum. But Sorcerer is doing really, really well this week. Looks like people got good stabs relatively early on in the run. And this Sorcerer strategy, especially with Elemental Archon being gained, is doing a ton of damage.
Here.
Should be fine getting through this with that shout to blow up the spikes. We can see the Solar Orb animation. A fun fact for you guys, if you are watching these Tavakai fights, you can see in phase 2 and 3 Tavakai, when Tavakai casts spells, a corresponding one of these totem poles, pillars, I'm not sure what the name is in Polynesian culture for such an object, but long story short, these totem poles, a different one lights up to correspond to each spell. So people have said that the audio cues for the spells are all similar. That's
Whole
true.
New Society gets the shield. Sorry to interrupt you. He finally managed to survive the attack that previously took him down so many times with a similar unfortunate timing, but this time around faster on the reactions, gets that shield up, manages to stay alive. And Whole New Society, finally, a super interesting, different approach. Okay, come on, hit him. With a very different approach for the entirety of this race. Our race leader, he's finally finishing it here. Doesn't manage to get rank 1, but still persevere. Come on, dude. I'm trying to. No way. Okay, I thought he's gonna duck to the sun.
Good.
He does get it.
You know, tikis. Thank you, Twitch chat. They're tikis. That's the name.
Tiki. Oh wow, you were still hung up on that. He manages to play it up for the crowd. Whole New Society finishes. Definitely a player to watch out for in next week. And I'm also pretty certain that I think he's going to influence how other mercenaries are going to approach next week's race, right?
I mean, I'm looking at. I already have Discord DMs from racers.
Yep.
I already have Discord DMs from racers. Absolutely fascinating thing. By the way, there's been this refrain from the Twitch chat race audience over the course of the last several weeks that, oh, well, we need to nerf grenades. Grenades OP. Grenades are the only thing you can race on. The top 6 finishers were on 6 different classes. Okay? I don't want to hear that we've got a toxic centralized meta. Top 6 finishes on 6 different classes.
That's
And
crazy.
Sorceress finished rank 9. So we have 7 different classes in the top 9 and 6 different classes in the top 6. Get out of here with your toxic meta nerf grenades. I
But
like
like
grenades.
5 of them used grenades, though. Come on.
I want there are people at the GGG offices watching. I don't want grenades nerfed. I made a whole video about how you could make grenades like a cooler thing without being OP. And I mean, we need the rework. We don't need a nerf. We need a rebalance for the grenades.
I mean, honestly, I think the other approaches, we've seen a lot of really viable approaches, and we honestly also, the meta is evolving. People are exploring Druid, different ways of doing things. The Witch looked super competitive. Everybody had really good RNG, maybe with a little bit less RNG, maybe with just a little bit of better play. I think anything can happen at this stage, right? Just because if you look at the steady approach, the warrior, sure, managed to come out ahead, but we've never had a witch come even remotely close to winning overall. And this was 14 seconds apart for rank 1 as we watch Crate Fieri on the monk trying to kill his Tavakai, trying to claim his demi.
Yeah, one thing that I want to say, first off, I want to give Crate his flowers. Monk is definitely the hardest class to race on. It's not particularly close. Oh, Crate rips. Oh my goodness gracious. As I was going to say, it has the lowest survivability. It's forced to fight in dangerous melee CQC combat. That's one of the things that's extremely difficult. But also just talking about, like, people say, oh, Crimson, you're saying 6 classes, how many different skills? We saw EDC Bonestorm Witch. We saw Shield Wall Warrior. We saw an Ember Fusillade Sorceress.
Sure.
We saw grenades. And we're also, if we take a look at, for example, rangers like Lysera, who are going to finish in the top 15 or 20 based on current ladder positions, you can also see Lightning Arrow in there as well. There are many more options here. Last week we saw Oil Barrage as the bossing strategy on some Druids. There are a variety of strategies here. There are at least 6, maybe 8 archetypes there. Twitch chat, you're welcome for me not saying 6-7. I went 6-8 just for you guys.
You just said it though.
Oh darn, I'm sure that Twitch chat won't explode with 6-7 now.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing though, right? That I think a lot of this feedback, I still remember in the first racing meta, and even when PoE 2 came out, everybody was like, lol, warrior, worst class. Who thinks warrior strong, just auto attacks, and then bam, warrior and Gormus wins 3 races in a row, and suddenly everybody's like, oh, warrior OP, oh, I hate seeing warrior all the time. Like, no, guys, there's a lot of exploration to be had here, and that's the cool part about PoE 2, that you still have so many different angles to explore. We might be seeing more Druid, we might be seeing more Witch. Who knows? I wonder if Whole New Society is going to change their approach. He has shown that in terms of layout reads, kill speed, and really everything that takes a fantastic racer to win, he's got all of it. So does he need to go for this risky strategy next week? Will he potentially be the person to adjust, thinking that he's just better than everybody else, right? Nobody was really catching up to him. So if you can pull off the same thing, but having that safer approach, not take any risks, the more tight 23 approach, it's kind of, oh no, Relicario unfortunately dies to a combo attack there from one of the mobs. But we've had that in PoE 1. That was a really big thing where Tie 23 always had the approach of like, again, he called it the garbage can strategy. He didn't need to be first by an hour. He just needed to be first by 1 second. As long as he's rank 1, he doesn't care what his time is. As opposed to somebody like Havoc, who was always a big competitor, and he always wanted the world record. He always wanted to be the fastest by as much as humanly possible. And sometimes it resulted in him dying and losing the race, and sometimes it resulted in unbeatable records for the remainder of the season. So we're seeing a little bit of that absolutely developing here for Path of Exile 2, as some of these players are just developing their own playstyle too, their skill expression, right? You can tell from the way that they are playing who the player is. We were talking about this a little bit in the before chat where you were mentioning that certain players only do certain things in certain ways, and you can tell this is that player without really knowing their name, and that's going to show in how aggressive they're going to be playing through this campaign for sure.
Yeah, great notes. One thing, just while we're talking about build diversity, I asked production to grab us a traditional ranger. We've got Lisra, a friendly streamer. If you guys are curious about bow-based speedrunning, Lisra is a great and friendly resource. Has interesting uses for the ranger mobility skills like escape shot early on, and likes to play lightning arrow, lightning rod. Goes out of his way to clear Fraythorn, which not a lot of racers do, in order to get Herald of Thunder. Has a bunch of different skills than you may see available on different classes here. Has a pretty traditional lightning arrow setup: innervate, elemental armament, rapid attacks. Lightning rod has concentrated area, elemental armament 2, deliberation. Pretty traditional tree as well. Looks like his item RNG is pretty bad. Looks like he's not having
Uh-oh.
the happiest time that I've ever seen a ranger have. Has a pretty good quiver, a very good quiver, in fact. But his bow itself seems to struggle a little bit more. So Lisra should be able to close this out. We're hoping to see our boy cross the finish line with a sub-3 finish, but it would require completely clean execution across the finish line from him. You'll see he pre-stacks the lightning rods, and he's actually going to be one of the players that does a lot more to manipulate boss attack cycles, because playing lightning rod, you need to manipulate where the boss stands in order to get them onto those lightning rods for that first cycle, using electrocuting arrow to hold Torvian here still as well. Is also one of the lower HP classes here as well. You'll notice that, for example, I kept pointing out Whole New Society had 677 max HP, and here we can see Lisra has only 584, so nearly 100 less than Whole New Society. And Whole New Society, as we saw, had difficulty surviving against bosses late in the run. Also, using, again, some cross-class synergies, we can see the elemental weakness coming out here, as well as a bunch of various other ideas to stack shock and exposure here, but with clean execution on these lightning rods. Now, this is a level 41 strategy, so 10 levels or so higher than our race leaders were today. But if you want a fast league start on bows, Lisra is the person to look for bow league start advice.
Great. In phase 3, our last class to finish, the monk. Will he be able to do it here? A giant amount of spikes that he has to dodge from that big explosion. Manages to do so. Will he be able to finish it here? The boss soon will be getting stunned. The monk has a mixture of really cool ranged and melee attacks. You weave in and out, and it's proving to be super effective. The Cold Storm comes down, the shield goes up, manages to not get frozen, manages to not get stunned, and survives through it. Definitely a lot more cold resistance there. You can see a big focus on the itemization in that direction, just like that. Tavakai will go down, Crate Fury claims his Monk Demi, and that will be our final class. But we do have Relicario. We can. Is he going to be going for the one shot? This is something that you guys haven't seen. It is a Druid.
We love the oil barrage. Just sit there. Bleh, all over the boss.
This is what we're talking about. It's pretty cool, huh?
We love to see this stuff. I'm just a huge. I mean, I'm a racer myself. I love participating in the races, but I'm also just a fan of the Theorycraft. Like a lot of people in Twitch chat, I'm sure you send your friend a Path of Building. You see a support gym interaction. That's how the strategy goes here. Looks like we may be wrapping up soon, but we do want to highlight just one more unique build. You can see Oil Barrage able to finish up on the boss here with this big tech. There's some wonderful notes. After race season is over, I have permission from most racers to publish what their builds are. So I will be able to publish a big folder of builds for people if you're curious what the speedrun builds are, and as you're planning and trying to transition to figure out what you want to league start in 0.5. A lot of this speedrun tech will become public. You can join the Campaign Codex Discord where a lot of racers are happy to discuss what they're doing. And as we see
my God.
And then you stun the boss, you're able to use Rend in order to get the next power charge. And here Relicario brings us across the finish line. One finisher of every class, a couple of different builds. We saw Bone Storm, we saw Ember Fusillade, we saw Grenades, we saw Shield Wall, we saw and we saw Lightning Rod here as well. So thank you for switching in on the frame where I have my tongue out there. Production.
It's perfect.
I appreciate you doing that.
On point.
So we see a variety of different skills there. What a beautiful race. One of the closest and most exciting finishes there. Like, Rise, as you've been in the caster booth for all of these different races, I can't think of another one as a spectator who's watched VODs or as a racer myself. In these 11 races, this has been the best finish that we've had so far.
I gotta say, I mean, it is really crazy, but at the same time, a lot of these race finishes get so ridiculous when you get into these later portions towards the very finish line. I feel like every week we say, this is the greatest finish ever. So that only means that if you think this race finish was an amazing one, we have another one coming up for you just a week from now in the final third race of the fourth season of Path of Exile 2 Racing. It's
Yeah,
gonna be a banger, I think.
we did. Two pieces of housekeeping before we wrap up here. One, I want to make sure that Twitch chat gives their flowers to production. We have a couple of people at GGG helping us, feeding us stats, managing the cameras here, fighting through that lag to make sure you guys have a clean spectating experience. So if you guys could give some W's or some claps for production for the GGG employees who are helping us behind the scenes. Me and Rise are the face, but we want to know that there are other people behind the scenes. And second, we have a special event going on after this. We've talked with GGG, and last week after the races, a couple of streams popped up where racers were able to have conversations with streamers and share their builds and the inside perspective of racers. So if you guys enjoyed that, we're actually going to raid from here into Darth Microtransactions stream, where he and Karn have agreed to grab a couple of racers and host an after party of sorts, where we're going to have a lot more chat interaction. I might be there, and Gormus will probably be there, and that way you guys can learn more about the builds or ask questions or just sort of get the racers' perspective on things, because we know that during the races, the competitors themselves often don't interact with Twitch chat much. So if you're curious about the builds and you want more racing insight, just hang on through for the raid, and we'll see you guys next week as well when I go try and earn my first demi.
Hell yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to it for sure. I learned a lot this cast, so thank you so much for doing this, Crimson. It was incredibly informative, and it's always great to have somebody so knowledgeable on the panel as opposed to, let's be for real, me and Ziggy, who
No.
definitely a downgrade next week, but I hope that you guys still
No,
show
no,
up
no, no,
there.
no, 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 no. You're going back to Uncle Ziggy's house. I heard he made lemon bars. It's going to be great.
Hell yeah. But yeah, hope to see you guys next week. We are wrapping up. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, next week, there's going to be a banger. I'm sure the players are going to be sharing a lot of information between each other. Maybe a little bit of misinformation in there too, to throw some of their competition off. So take all of it with a little bit of a grain of salt. Listen, you got to go. You got to do that little bit of a PvP, People always talk about PoE as a PvE game. You know what? It's only as much of a PvE game as you make it. There's definitely some PvP that's going to be going on next week. I'll see you guys later. Thanks very much. I'm RiceQT. This was Crimson Cast. Hope you get to see you guys next week.